thoughts dwell on your mother?
Afraid to lose her, I think.
Congratulations on your election, Chancellor.
There's no doubt the mysterious warrior was a Sith.
The Council have granted me permission to train you. You will be a Jedi. I promise.
I will not let this republic that has stood for 1,000 years be split in two. Will Senator be placed under the protection of your graces?
Anakin, escort the senator back to her home planet of Naboo. She'll be safer there.
Annie? My goodness, you've grown. I want to know who's trying to kill me.
We're here to protect you, Senator, not to start an investigation.
Why, aren't you?
I'm looking for a planetary system called Kamino.
This army is for the Republic.
The army?
Blind we are. In creation of this clone army, we could not see.
I see you becoming the greatest of all Jedi, Anakin.
We need a system where the politicians sit down and discuss the problem.
Trouble is that people don't always agree.
Well, then they should be made to. From the moment I met you, all those years ago, not a day has gone by when I even thought of you.
You're starting to become a Jedi. I'm a senator.
We could keep it a secret. I saw my mother. I know I'm disobeying my mandate to protect you, Senator. But I have to go. I have to help her.
Oh, I'm so tired of you.
Why couldn't I save her? I know I could have. I will be the most powerful Jedi ever. I promise you. I will even learn to stop people from dying.
What if I told you that the Republic was now under the control of the Dark Lord of the Sith?
Commerce skills are preparing for war, there can be no doubt of that.
This is a crisis. The Senate must vote the Chancellor emergency powers.
It is with great reluctance that I have agreed to this calling.
Disheartened.
I love democracy. I love the Republic.
We will not be hostages to be bartered, Dooku.
I have to admit that without the clones, it would not have been a victory.
Master Obi-Wan, not victory. The shroud of the dark side has fallen. Begun. The Clone War has.
Episode 2 takes place 10 years after Episode 1, and now Anakin is a Padawan learner, apprentice Jedi, and Obi-Wan is his mentor. Padme finished her term as the Queen of Naboo and has gone on to become a senator. The movie is essentially a story about Anakin and Anakin's dealing with his emotions, the difficulty of his being torn between his duty and his emotional needs which relate to Padme.
Must be difficult having sworn your life to the Jedi. Not being able to do the things you like.
Or be with the people that I love.
Are you allowed to love? Thought that was forbidden for a Jedi.
It's the beginning of the end of democracy in the Republic. We go to Kamino, which is a very exotic, more fantastic, science fiction-y kind of planet. Very surreal. And we also go to Geonosis, which is a planet of insect-like creatures.
In terms of the scope, visually, the amount of planets, the vehicles that have been designed for this is the most ambitious of all the various chapters that have been made already.
This is back to the spirit of adventure, the excitement, the drama. Everything is in this script that made people fall in love with the original Star Wars.
Since Episode 1, he'll have been training Anakin heavily.
Patience. Use the Force. Think. Sorry, Master.
They're like two old friends who've been together a long time and who spend too much time together.
You know I don't like it when you do that. Sorry, Master. I forgot you don't like flying. Well, you've lost it. If you'll excuse me.
hate it when he does that. Obi-Wan Kenobi's worried Anakin's a bit headstrong and overconfident.
Boy has exceptional skills.
But he still has much to learn, Master. His abilities have made him, well, arrogant.
He loves Obi-Wan because he is sort of a father figure for him. But at the same time, there still is that resistance because Anakin does want to break free of what he's doing right now.
I'm ready for the trials, but he feels that I'm too unpredictable. He won't let me move on.
She is now a senator. She had been the queen, but her reign ended, and the new queen asks her to stay and help out and be a senator, so she's still in the political scene.
Do you have any idea who's behind this attack?
We will find out who's trying to kill you, Padme. I promise you.
Escort the senator back to Naboo. She'll be safer there.
They have to travel together a lot because he's protecting her.
Throughout the film, they're put in these very extreme settings because they're in hiding.
You're making fun of me.
No, I'd be much too frightened to tease a senator.
She really struggles with sort of the career versus romance issue. You're starting to become a Jedi. I'm a senator.
We could keep it a secret.
I'd be living a lie. I couldn't do that. Could you, Anakin?
He understands that as a Jedi he's not allowed to fall in love, even though he feels so passionately for Padme. It's that confusion that really causes him all of his anxiety.
This one, obviously, we kind of know what happens to Anakin. We just don't know how and why.
It's all Obi-Wan's fault. He's holding me back.
You're not all-powerful, Anakin.
Well, I should be.
Anakin's flaws, like all classic mythological heroes, are the flaws that everyone carries with them. The issues that he's confronting is that a good Jedi overcomes those flaws and kind of goes above the normal human tragedy that most people have to experience.
What is it? Pain, suffering, death, I feel.
Anakin is starting to display some interesting characteristics that need to be watched closer.
Evil isn't just pure evil. A lot of times it comes from good. Episode 2 is sort of like an extended portrayal of how evil evolves.
And it really allows you to, I think, feel for his struggle much more. And I think that most people would make some of the same choices that Anakin does.
It's no different than having somebody in your family that you love who's got a serious problem. There's not much you can do. You don't stop loving them. And I think that's what's going to happen, especially with somebody as good as
I go on a kind of Dick Tracy detective spree.
I've always wanted to have my own ship, and he gets one and he gets to take off in it on his own adventure in this one.
A bit like Luke Skywalker does in his X-Wing when he goes to find Yoda.
They are using a bounty hunter named Jango Fett to create a clone army.
Wait. Your clones are very impressive. You must be very proud.
They'll do their job well.
I needed a Jedi who was an older Jedi that had left the Order, who was very good. I decided to go with a more elegant, sophisticated kind of person, reminiscent of Obi-Wan Kenobi as an older man.
I play a character called Count Dooku, a battle-scarred Jedi. He's obviously a man of immense power, mental power and physical power.
You must join me, Obi-Wan, and together we will destroy the Sith.
Commerce skills are preparing for war, there can be no doubt of that.
My role apparently is that of mediator, who believes in peace and the power of negotiation, until it seems that it's absolutely inevitable and nothing else can be done.
I will create a grand army of the Republic to counter the increasing threats of the Separatists.
This is actually the beginning of the Clone Wars, so there's a lot of intense action sequences in this film. This is the heyday, the golden age of Jedi. We see Jedi in large battle scenes, battling as a large group. And before, we've never seen that before. There's always been a couple of Jedi fighting each other.
I've watched all these swashbuckling films all my life. I was a huge Errol Flynn fan when I was a kid. And this seems to be the next step in the fencing age.
I mean, Jedi, as I've always said before, they've chosen a sword in a time of, laser guns, so they better be damn good with it.
All right.
All Jedi don't fight exactly alike.
An elegant weapon.
When we started, there was a particular style developed. It's a combination of samurai and Western sword fighting. And when we did Phantom, we sort of progressed that style.
Nick Gillard creates a unique fighting style for each of the Jedi, and how it sort of reveals a certain element of their personality.
Other Jedis have other ones, but that's the one, isn't it? And it's mine.
You have to distinguish between the characters, so you have to read the script a lot of times and understand the character.
A lot of the aggression that I hold in my character is exemplified in my fighting style.
He understands. He moves really well, he's tough.
Anakin maybe loses control a little bit and some of the darkness emerges, whereas a Jedi normally would have to be much more in control of the situation.
They're like marshals in the Old West. They're the keepers of the peace. They're given assignments to resolve conflicts.
This Jedi walks by and ruins my action.
With the ultimate threat of force if things aren't resolved.
I said, don't touch it. Yo, what?
Anakin, who's much more youthful, and I think Obi-Wan Kenobi is slightly more sedate.
Right. Oh, sorry.
He's much more confident now. It's 10 years or so past, I think. He's become the master, not the apprentice anymore.
Obi-Wan, his fighting style is much more by the book, even though he's obviously very skilled.
He has got extraordinary balance and hand-eye coordination. But yeah, it's a long process, and not just them getting the moves, but them keeping the character.
Getting the feet right and getting the steps so you can actually do it. It's a lot like dance choreography. Your feet have to be right so that the strikes look correct.
We're trying to go much more classical. Some of the characters are real master swordsmen, better than anything we've seen so far.
Excellent.
Trying to figure out who we had to talk to about your light color, your lightsaber color.
Oh, well, good guys are green and blue, bad guys are red. That's just the way it works.
There's no purple left?
You might get purple.
It would be a shame for me to participate in a film like this and never get to use my lightsaber.
We've not seen Mace fight yet, and we know that he's second only to Yoda.
Good to G.O.
I guess because I'm such a fan of Japanese samurai movies, and I've watched a lot of kendo fights and a lot of stuff, I'm doing pretty good at it.
I was thinking about a style for him, but it's Sam Jackson's style, that he has so much style of his own.
Since I'm supposedly the second baddest person in the universe, I'm pretty efficient. I don't do a lot of fancy sword twirling or anything. I dispense people pretty quickly. Use as little energy as possible, but I'm pretty lethal.
Okay, cool with that?
Yeah, I think this is the first time that we really get to see all the Jedi in action, which is an amazing sight.
Are you using the force on the end there? Yeah, with him. Are you making him flop around like a dead fish?
No.
Say you go in the mic.
No. No. That's his own thing. It's gas.
I'm a pilot, you know, and someday I'm gonna fly away from this place.
You think I'm still the little boy that you first met, when the truth is, I've changed. I'm grown up.
Whenever you're casting, first of all, you're always looking for a really good actor, somebody that really has a lot of craft and is really very talented.
Action!
Who fits the part that you've created.
For the role of Anakin, we had a formal screen test.
102, take one, Mark.
To be honest, I went in with no expectations. I really wasn't thinking that, you know, ooh, I really want this part. It was just, wow, you know, that's George Lucas. This is cool.
And in this particular case, I was looking for somebody who was very boyish and young, but had sort of a James Dean sullen edge to him.
Annie?
Anakin. And it makes me sound like a little boy.
You look at those eyes, and there's just so much happening there. Hayden had all the elements of the character.
Don't try to grow up too fast.
I am grown up. About a week after my test, not even, I was lying in bed and got the phone call that I got the part. I never would have expected to be here right now. This is Star Wars. It's really, really cool. This is my first action.
Hayden's stepping into a huge part to play Anakin and to be the young Darth Vader, you know.
Yeah, they're liking me today.
I was always the youngest ones, and I'm now not, so...
It's funny, the first day I had to take my lightsaber out and set. I didn't even realize what I was doing, and the first take I did, I was like, wow. I was like, oh, no, you guys, you'll put that in later, won't you?
I don't want to be, you know, showing him how things are, because everyone has to find out for themselves. He's brilliant. I love him to death. He's a great kid.
Anakin in this movie is a transitional character. He's going from the young Padawan learner to becoming aware of the fact there's more to him than that.
He's always had a sense of longing for love in his life.
Hayden's a wonderful actor. I'm really, really impressed by him, especially because he's very confident.
And he's a much more complex character than the surface belies.
It's not really a mystery. Everyone knows that I'm going to the dark side. It's kind of like the Titanic sinking. Excuse me for just a moment. Well, for me, it's just heaps of fun to go in and get dressed up as a Jedi every day and put on the boots and get to wear the cloak occasionally.
Right.
He's got a fantastic mind. He understands exactly the part. Every stunt he's got on this movie, he'll do it. We have a double. We have a good double.
Hayden's actually too good, and I'm not really doing very much at all.
I mean, he's fiercer than the double, and, you know, he's made out of tough stuff.
I was heavily involved in athletics and wanted to be a hockey player, wanted to be a tennis player. It's Star Wars, you know? Why would you not want to be a part of every aspect that you could? I don't want anyone else on the screen trying to do my thing. You know? I'll take a few bruises for the team. It's the stuntman in me. As much as it is my character, it's all coming from George's head. He is the definitive of how it should be played. So you have to pay attention.
Well, Hayden is actually a very talented actor. He's very good, very professional, works really hard.
It's extraordinary to think that he's so young.
I don't think he realizes how good he is.
I had no idea. You try to give flashes of darkness and flashes of just pure innocence just to try to bring everything together.
He was able to pull that off very well. That was a hard thing to do.
Giving yourself to the Jedi means giving your whole life. Well, cut that.
And Boba Fett appears as a cartoon character. I think that's his first appearance, just after 78. The holiday special.
I am Boba Fett.
I think a great deal of fans, 98% of fans, want to know more about him.
I grow up in 4 and 5 and that, and then I become a bounty hunter. Whoa, I even get the jetpacks.
rain as we can get, as much wind as we can get.
One of the great things about Episode 2 is it really delivers on this mysterious and wonderful character, Boba Fett, and also someone who's equally mysterious, the character called Jango Fett.
I guess he's the original bounty hunter then, because Boba Fett's like 11 years old in this one.
Come back on Monday, I think, to fly spaceships. Can you do that? Fly through asteroids? Fight? Shoot?
Took him under my arm. Call me Dad now, while we're here. Okay, I'll call you son, just so we get a bit of bonding going.
Yeah, we just got to use our imaginations.
Actually, I think this is what fans have been waiting for ever since they saw Boba Fett in The Empire Strikes Back.
Bounty hunters.
And the very first day was a scene with all the bounty hunters. And all I was doing was just standing and looking at Darth Vader occasionally.
No disintegration.
As you wish.
I remember my younger son saying, isn't it funny you put a bucket over your head, Dad, and, and people think you're rather cool.
He's all yours, bounty hunter.
It was very exciting because the first real science fiction film I'd done.
Put Captain Solo in the cargo hold.
Human, yes. Origin, unknown. Planet, unknown. He was quite a special character. It's the mystery behind this uniform. You need to see the film several times to think, why does he wear this death head on his epaulette? They had little knee pads where I could fire darts with. They were velcroed on, and by the end of the day they'd obviously slipped round, so you'd have to keep shifting them. And if I walked, which I didn't do much of, they'd shoot across the room because the velcro would snap off and fly. It wasn't easy.
This is from Empire, and there's Boba Fett on set with his knee pads on upside down and his trousers rolled up. So when we first got the photos from the fitting and we put it next to, put them next to one another, you could see who it was meant to be, but also you could see it was a different character, which is quite cool.
They used the Boba Fett costume for my costume as well.
May the Force be with you, bro.
We've gone for this new kind of silver millennium kind of colour. Feels amazing and privileged to hold that mantle of the Boba Fett reign,
George, what's my lines today, George? Any dialogue?
You draw your guns and you pow, pow, pow.
The fight scene with Obi-Wan Kenobi. The space chase through asteroid planets. And the helmet, of course. And that got a bit much in the rain sometimes.
Believe me, this is rain. This is real rain.
Roll cameras. While you're doing your action and your fight scenes,
When the thing fogs up, I can't see anything. Oh, well, I'll just carry on like this. I can just see this blur coming down.
being a strong, virile Maori warrior from New Zealand, well, you just got to deal with these elements and carry on. Thank goodness for those stunt doubles.
Go down and see George, the director. Ask him about your motivation. All right?
I love Boba Fett. I mean, we get to spend a lot of time with him in this movie. We get to understand where he comes from, but we also understand that his identity is forged in some of the most powerful events that take place in the whole Star Wars saga.
But the biggest thing of all, he's pretty cool, yeah.
May the Force be with me.
It's awesome. It's even more powerful than what we see in Empire Strikes Back. I think people are going to be blown away, not only by the costume, but by the performance and the whole overall story that takes place between Jango Fett and Boba Fett.
It wouldn't rain up in space.
In order to get anything to happen, you have to take a certain amount of risk, and you have to sort of go into an area where you're not sure you're going to be able to pull it off.
George is always known as an innovator. Here we go again. He's doing something new. He's doing something different.
It certainly is a risky idea.
The quality of an image that's captured on a digital camera does not stand up against the same image that would be captured on a piece of motion picture film.
When you're shooting a film, it's like doing beautiful art, traditional art. Video today is still modern art, not even good modern art yet.
There is a lot of controversy about the fact that we're shooting this digitally. As far as I'm concerned, they should have been shooting digital cinema 20 years ago. People say, why am I doing it? The real question is, why not?
Well, the very first time that George ever discussed his concept of a digital future for the cinema and television was in 1989. And I'm even amazed now how precise that vision actually was about what he wanted to achieve. First of all, there was a series, Young Indiana Jones. He wanted to make that a test bed for digital effects.
On the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, which was shot on 16mm, by the way, George was already tampering with digital additions, digital extensions, and replication. That series was really the test of digital technology.
George wanted to fold the technology that we had developed on Young Indy and try and do the same thing in a feature film called Radioland Murders.
He was curious to see if it was possible to do the same thing on 35mm and project it onto a big screen.
No one had a problem in terms of the effects. In fact, they're imperceptible. Even though the film wasn't successful, that part of the process was incredibly successful for us.
So George had the confidence to use that same technology in The Phantom Menace.
Let's go.
And then we've gone one stage further in episode 2, actually shooting on digital.
For the kind of films that George makes, the kind of films that we make, we are ostensibly in the digital arena from the first day that we actually start working. Most people will fail to realize this, but basically what happens is every single frame, every single shot in the movie has a digital effect.
Pretty much every set has blue screen, even if it's just out a window or something.
It's everywhere. I think I've been on one set where there hasn't been any blue screen.
So for us to shoot in film and then scan it into a computer is a ridiculous process. Right now we can shoot on high def, and 50 minutes after we shoot a 50-minute cassette, it's inside the computer.
Well, yes, this is the day shooting. There's no more laboratory. It's now on tape. Sound and picture on the same recording device. Sunk automatically for us to put in on the computers. It's all on this one thing.
What's the camera? What's the camera? What's the camera? What's the camera?
We wanted to shoot the last film this way, and had been working with Sony for several years to try to make it happen, and just couldn't get the cameras built fast enough.
There were certain inherent basic issues. Video is shot at 30 frames per second, film is shot at 24 frames per second, and that was a major holdback for us.
The biggest difference with these cameras is that they were developed to provide a 24 frame per second frame rate, which is exactly the rate that we've been using for production photography and film.
So it means that when they scan it onto film, you have one video frame to every film frame.
The next big problem that we had was, of course, not just the camera, but the lenses. The lenses that come with the camera were not acceptable to acquire this widescreen format that we shoot. So the only place I could go to then was Panavision.
Yeah, they're computer design lenses, focusing on a very small target.
The actual chips that are in the camera are smaller than a 35mm film image. That meant the performance of the lens actually had to be better than a 35mm lens, since you were using a smaller area to image the entire high-resolution frame on.
The depth of field, the clarity, the sharpness of the image, the brightness was something that still just knocked us off our feet.
There's never any doubt about whether or not you can see something in the background, or you will see something in the background. It's exactly how it's going to be on the big screen.
The cameraman, the prop department, wardrobe, hair, myself, everybody gets to see the dailies, everybody gets to see if anything's wrong, and they get to fix it by the next take. Whereas normally you wait until the next day and then you have to go back and reshoot it.
The mobility of the film camera is still better than digital. I could move the Nariflex, move all of the work, go all over the mountains with any temperature and shoot.
We spent years in the film industry trying to get the camera free. Now suddenly we're tied to cables again.
On this show we got to plug 7 cables into the camera. An HD, a time code, a Genlock, 2 audios and data.
The camera, to be honest, does feel a bit cumbersome. It's pretty long, it's unwieldy, But already, even since we started, they've made a new zoom lens. It's half the size, half the weight. And next year, the camera's going to be half the size.
I am sure it will improve eventually. It's digital is work in progress.
Breathing down the neck of the film camera.
It doesn't mean that technology is going to make the film any better. That has nothing to do with art.
Technology is used to tell a story, and that's the whole point. It's really the filmmaker and the storyteller and how well they're able to tell the story that counts in the end. The techniques they use are really a byproduct of that.
Thanks, folks. First up in the morning, the other pod will come in. We'll take the grey pod out tonight. Jeds. And we'll start with scene 5. Can we get the charts for it? So that's a wrap.
I think someday you're going to be able to probably do about everything we can do with models. You'll be able to do them in a computer, but we're not there yet.
It just takes longer at this point in time for them to build and finish a CG model than it does for them just to build one.
The constraints of building miniatures around a certain shot has just been blown wide open. We can do whatever we need to do to get the image, and then it can be doctored, altered, or touched up digitally.
The major shifts in visual effects since I've been in this profession, that's just incredible. I just turned around and suddenly we're in the computer world.
The models are used as a starting point, and then they have digital enhancements on top of them. So it's not like we just do the model and put it in the picture and it's done.
So we got one side which we call a hero side of the model, which is where we spend all our time making things real nice.
Our miniatures are built with the filmmaking process in mind. We're not just building a piece of art, we're building something that needs to be photographed.
This will actually break into several sections for shooting, which pieces will be removable so cameras can get in and such.
You shoot them in various angles and things of what you need for the scenes, but you can actually pull them out and move them around and reconfigure them. Terrific. Right.
I mean, it all just, goes together like a jigsaw puzzle pretty quickly.
We have people who have very strong art backgrounds, and we have electricians, we have painters. We're doing a lot of miniatures as environments, so George went ahead and shot all of his actors in front of blue screens, and we're creating the rooms that they're actually acting in. So this is a 10-scale miniature of the interior corridor. Here's the artwork we started with. So we have a 100% miniature environment here, this hallway with Obi-Wan. That definitely sells it. Once a character goes into a model like this, it's a done deal, it's sold, and you really believe it.
And what you're seeing is all the miniature stuff that we shot. And then the thing that you're missing here, because this is shot in production, is all the digital stuff that goes in there. That will change. But I don't think the shot will change. I mean, we've got that bug from George.
Whenever we change a shot, it's usually finished. It's really just a way of getting a lot of detail very fast without, having to spend a huge amount of time on the computer to do it.
If the shot requires the camera to be, say, inside a room or inside an environment, the detail and level of model making needs to be exact and perfect. Sometimes it takes us a few tries to accomplish a perfect part. This one looks pretty good. You can see right here there's a dimple in the piece that can really be highlighted and blow it. So the idea is no dust, perfect part.
We have model makers that know just how to make a model look like it's correctly aged and built and structured correctly and weighted. It looks like a building has actually got the right weight to it.
There's no detail on this plane at all, but by breaking it up with paint and creating aging and drips, it's an illusion of a three-dimensionality to this part that doesn't exist.
We have a limited amount of resources, a limited amount of time, and then you build whatever you need to build to accomplish a shot.
In the computer world, all the computer guys would need to learn how to make the models, but also make them or be able to render them in time, especially organic shapes, but even a lot of architectural models is very time consuming. And it's faster and better still to do a lot of work with models.
In Star Wars, the first trilogy, Princess Leia's costumes are very, very simplistic. They're designed to not call attention to themselves. The Empire has taken over. Fashion has gone out the window. Everybody wears gray or white in a world where evil sort of is in control of things. And in the second trilogy, the costumes are designed to call attention to themselves. So it's just the opposite. Tone it down a little bit. As I write the script, I work with a design group. I mean, this might be okay for Padme. And cut! Pretty much as I write scenes, I say, okay, I got a scene here. Set! In a romantic location on a lake, and it's going to be a love scene and that kind of thing, so I need an outfit to go with that.
As George sort of progressed with the script, he sort of realised more that he wanted to show a softer, sort of friendlier side to Padme.
The other costumes in the first film really were about her being a queen.
In episode 1, she was a very formal figure and had to always be aware of her position.
Last time they were so incredibly gorgeous, but it really cumbersome to wear.
This one is much more about making her as beautiful as we possibly can.
That's beautiful.
And when Trish comes in, a lot of things get thrown up because she then takes those and tries to translate those into real cloth and movement on the body and everything.
They specifically worked hard to make them as comfortable as possible, and I really got to enjoy wearing these gorgeous, gorgeous clothes.
Very good.
That's fantastic.
Isn't it fun?
Which one is, what is this for?
This is packing in the apartment.
Packing? You got it just like that to pack?
Every day I'm in a different outfit.
Big job. Natalie no longer plays the queen. She's now a senator, so the costumes are less regal and less formal and less stylized.
Why don't we put a t-shirt on her? How's that? Okay.
My costumes are a little bit more revealing this time, much more feminine, not as rigid.
Just to be a more casual, softer figure this time. Now this is P19, which Padme wears when she goes on a picnic up to the Shack Fields with Hayden from the retreat island. You know, she is going to fall in love.
The costume in the hills in Naboo is really, really beautiful. It felt like a period piece as opposed to, you know, this futuristic piece, but it's very romantic and flowing.
This has all been embroidered, and we've laid on the little pieces of roses onto the borders just to link the whole thing to do. This is a little shawl that gets draped over the shoulders, and then there's twists of coloured ribbons in matching colours. Light, summery, but quite sort of fun, so she can run about the fields and the dress floats.
And then sort of with the hair, I think we made it very Star Wars-y.
That was great.
We have a much more romantic story, so that Padme's costumes are obviously more sultry in nature and, you know, revealing and pretty.
There's one costume that George designed himself. And that was sort of the costume that, you know, I came on set and everyone was like, oh. That was an interesting costume to wear. And it was really hard at the end of the day because the corset was so tight. They made my waist like 20 inches or something.
It's him. Magical.
It's the great way that George sort of portrays women. They can be powerful and they can be soft and they can wear beautiful clothes and that doesn't contradict her strength. And I think that's great with this character.
Let's sit for a take.
She's this like tough, smart woman that everyone's trying to kill because she's such a powerful leader, and she also wears the coolest clothes.
Background!
In Star Wars, in any of the episodes that we're making, extras are extraordinarily important in defining the place that we're at. To, have people understand that there was another world there.
I don't know how we ended up here.
And where planet are you from?
Sydney.
There's sequences in Star Wars like the Cantina where I think that's certainly my favorite sequence, and that's entirely made up of extras, and it turned out to be one of the best in the whole saga.
Extras seem to have very high self-esteem, I think, because they're put through so much during the day. They're herded around like cattle.
Get on the bus! Get on the bus!
They don't do anything for hours at a time, so you have to really feel good about yourself.
I'm a spaceman, but a very important spaceman.
As an ordinary extra, I say you're not a star, but you're a twinkle beyond Pluto.
Can we boogie?
The response for Star Wars has been like no other production I've ever worked on, because people know it and they love it and they're dedicated to it and they're fans. It's so different working on a project that has so much history.
The Ewoks.
The Ewoks.
Why did you remember that one?
Oh, because I didn't get the pack.
I've seen every Star Wars film in the first week it was out, and I just can't believe I'm here.
Stroke of luck, really. The Force was with us.
I know. The reaction, particularly with younger people, when you just casually mention, oh, I've done a couple of days in Star Wars. Star Wars!
I know, yes. Yes, indeed.
I'm getting ready for my part as an intergalactic backpacker.
You're all normal pedestrians.
An extra is someone who is in the background of a scene who has no dialogue but may have a little bit of business.
You go in the direction I told you to go as I walked along the side.
You're an animated body.
An animated body, a screen filler.
So, folks, just pick it up a bit. Just be a bit animated. Just because you're in space doesn't mean that you can't have fun.
You'll see that this is actually all fogged up, so it's impossible to see out of any of this, but I mean that's the fun of acting, really, isn't it?
We actually don't need an acting ability.
You're always going to be doing the same thing.
What we need is a look.
Basically what we want to do is try and fit the faces of the particular extras into costumes which would suit their own little characters.
You sort of can't just have a costume allotted for people because we're getting all different shapes and sizes.
Up and down.
I can't see where he's moving the lightsabers.
Jedi don't have to see.
Got it?
When you finish your schooling, you'll look like Ewan McGregor. Lots of facial hair, tall.
Everybody falls for the strong silent type.
I get it.
That's you, right? Yeah! Every creature and every extra that you see in each movie has a name, has a personality, has a backstory. They're some sort of being that has actually been given a life. There's one in episode 2. His name is Kit Fisto. Just an extra, a guy, but all of a sudden, like, put in his name, and now there's the story there. Like, you want to know something about him.
I love it. Shoot it.
When this goes on, I'm a totally different person. I'm female. Easy.
We have a sequence in episode 2 where we're in a nightclub.
Yo, we got a really good date for you.
Surprise.
I fixed you up. Here she is. Come here. Here. Put your arm around Tony here. There you go.
It's a very classic Western type of barroom scene where the doors fly open and the two gunslingers walk in.
We needed about 150 extras. There had to be a certain look to them.
I've never looked like this before. I have been airbrushed all over.
It's a place that's in the lower depths of Coruscant, a place that we actually haven't really seen before.
There is one thing worse than working with me, it's being an extra in a Star Wars movie, okay?
And I would debate that.
Because when we come around to that second
When
position,
you have a great first assistant director who can move his extras around, it's fantastic.
everyone take a step to their right.
There's 2 rules. First rule is I don't care what you do. I don't care where you go. I don't care if you need to buy a paper, go to the bathroom, whatever. But the second rule is you've got to tell me you're going to do it.
You guys just stepped off set. What happened?
Stand-ins are slightly higher in status than extras. Perhaps when you're standing in the queue at lunchtime, you can stand in front of someone who's an extra.
We are indebted to you for your bravery, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
In episode 1, there's a scene, a particularly beautiful, haunting, and dramatic scene, where there are 2 extras who I think basically define what extra acting is all about.
Congratulations on your election, Chancellor.
That happens to be Ben Burt and myself in this sequence. Classic example for anyone, that anyone can be an extra, but they can do it a lot better than we did.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
We're in the middle of this giant execution arena where there's thousands and thousands of Geonosians cheering and screaming as they are led to the wolves. You're trapped in an impossible situation with no means of escape. Well, the arena scene in the picture starts out as an execution, and then it turns into a giant battle with Jedi. And then that turns into the Clone War. Real 6, as we call it.
There are only 100 Jedi available, and most of them were at Jedi resorts where we go and rest. We had to call them out.
There's 200 Jedi Knights who flooded into the arena fighting on the arena ground. To create that scene, we're filming each Jedi one at a time with 2 different cameras, so we can actually take the part of that fight that we like, and then we can actually composite them all together in one big fight where there'll be 100 of them all together in one shot.
A lot of it is that more than the other kind of movie, this depends on trust. If you don't quite know what's happening, you get, especially actors, get very nervous. You know, especially when there's nothing to hang on to. And I don't even know everything that's going to be there until I actually start working on it.
It really is like a giant sketchbook, giving more of like a poetic, just general swath of, what is the feeling, the mood, the lighting, color, palette of the location.
The whole world of Geonosis is a combination of a kind of organic designed environment with a kind of tinge of industrial design in it.
Through the notes and direction and George's sort of trust in us exploring things, literally in the doodle sketchbook phase, we can quickly leap from a verbal concept to these color abstracts. George really was into these termite-inspired towers, as if they're great architects in the natural world. So by bringing in these tower elements, carving into the rocks, it shows an ancient society, very insect-like and very primal.
Poggle is something a little bit tougher than the average Geonosian. George presented them as a species that could just sort of disappear into the rock.
These ideas provide an inspiration and a conversation point for our meetings with George.
Once we've had those conversations about the Clone War, we're basically everything in the movie's covered.
Yeah.
And we're in it, in everything. There's nothing sort of sitting on the shore anymore. It was a giant arena where there was an execution, so it was very much, like a Roman Colosseum in that guise of a spectator sport. We built this huge stadium.
During the ground battle, we'll use this. It'll be photographed and then replicated over and over again to help create the Geonosian landscape. I think the camera move is going to start somewhere in here and use this corner
as if the gunships have come out, they're coming around here, they're heading that way, and they're kind of flying past this piece, so the camera will come across this way. Fabulous.
It's fantastic. It's exotic, something we haven't done before.
So here we go.
Here we go.
300-something shots to do.
A whole reel.
The ability to be able to take anything that you can imagine and turn it into a completely photorealistic event where you can comp in any actor and it's seamless is really the dream that all of us have.
It's his point of view, so the camera would be right there. You see this edge.
Pretty tight then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of sort of a waist shot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shoot that, then we have a geography of what it is we're looking at in terms of backgrounds and whatnot. It's a giant exercise in having a vivid imagination. And the effect of 1,000 screaming termites.
Yeah.
That helps.
We've got match moves that have come from the plates that they shot on live action. I can now key out the blue and then see what our characters look like when I'm first lining up the shot, so that as we pan or tilt or slide across the background, it's going to match exactly what the characters are doing. Now we got a lot of close-up shots, and so we found that it would be faster if we just split the entire arena in half and then have one crew doing the opposite direction of the other crew. And that way we can get more stuff into post faster and get those shots coming out.
I think is probably the largest action sequence we have ever tried to even contemplate, much less achieve. We're very, very excited about it. It is so big.
Whether there'll be anything quite on this level in terms of a real six in the next film, but it'll be more like Empire, where it's mostly just personal rather than grandiose.
That's what you said last time.
Well, I said this is a love story, and it's not a...
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot fewer visual effects this time, because it's a love story.
I lied, didn't I? I think there's a great deal in the psychological effect of a movie that comes from the soundtrack. So for me, the sound is very, very important. It is half the movie. I've always had the sound designer working on the picture from the very beginning. Ben Burtt created the sound for the laser sword that really affected how I approached the laser sword fight.
Fantasy like Star Wars requires the complete fabrication of a complete sound world, from footsteps to exploding space stations.
Ben's sounds, they're really unique, and he has just a great library of sound that he's worked with and great experience and great knowledge in that area of the artistic development of sound.
Matthew would work on episode 1, setting up the whole sound design workstation that I was to use. He was my mentor and teacher to get me started. As I, Rip Van Winkle, woke up in the future and sound had gone from the Moviola analog audio to the Pro Tools and being digital.
I provide him raw sound effects elements. We're revving it to the next level with the film. Let's do it with sound too.
This is the only flying example of a Vickers Vimy in the world. This was the B-1 bomber of World War I.
Ben has a huge amount of plane recordings, and a lot of those plane recordings have actually ended up as spacecraft in the Star Wars universe. Just wanted to get it. He knew it was something unique that didn't exist everywhere. I just have all the major parts of the movie in my mind and what we need to record and what elements I can provide for Ben. Pretty amazing, huh? I'll get a takeoff and landing, and then I also want just a couple of bys. So while I'm there, if you know, maybe just one or two just like going by me, and then a circle. Could we do that? You know, you're going over me so I can get the Doppler effect of the, you know.
Okay.
Check, 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 check. It's totally unique. They've got those giant wood propellers. Hopefully they're going to oscillate in some way that's going to sound unique. I'll try to get as many different types of sounds that it makes. That's amazing. And then all these metal struts here will be dragging in the wind. That can make a nice sound. If I just stayed at those fence posts and walk about, you said a mile out there?
About a mile,
Yeah.
Brakes work on this thing now?
Yeah.
They do? Brakes work good.
Are we ready? Anything unique we can get for the Star Wars movie. Hey, are we in a good location? Don't want to get him like right when he's leaving the ground.
The famous thing about this airplane, it's the first airplane to fly across the Atlantic Ocean nonstop, first airplane to fly from England to Australia, and the first airplane to fly from England to South Africa.
It does have a really interesting sound. It's like a giant car.
Many of the best sounds are not things that you think of and imagine and then go out and search for, but rather discoveries you make.
Sound is happening all the time, so you're going to get something. But a lot of the stuff that you get is unexpected. Cool. The basic things that you always need to record, especially for the Star Wars movies, are like you need vehicles, you need pass-bys. It might be the base sound, might be Obi-Wan's ship. No one is really going to be able to identify it as a plane, especially after Ben gets done tweaking it out.
The end result of a motion picture is a great combination of picture and sound working together to most effectively and dramatically tell the story.
Yeah, that was perfect. I got a really interesting sound out of there, and we're definitely, it's going to end up in the film, I bet. Cool!
When I did Star Wars, the whole project was an exercise in reining myself in and designing a film to be able to get the maximum amount of strange environment and exciting spaceship action out of very, very little. I don't really have to rein myself in anymore.
Welcome to episode 2.
Roll, please.
Action!
I would say over half the sets are digitally created.
That was great.
It's in essence a digital movie, so that ILM is really working on every single shot.
In general, George doesn't limit his thinking to what he knows can be done with the technology. He always tries to set the bar a little higher, and it's up to us to try and figure out, well, can that actually be executed?
You know, film is a very collaborative medium. The ILM group is just part of the team, and they're able to tell me what they can and can't do. You are the ones that has to deal with the overall picture.
I'm, for the visual effects, acting as the DP. So I'm concerned primarily with the technical and aesthetic issues of putting the shots together. Rob is kind of the actors. George will direct Rob, and Rob will pass that on to his people.
We are no longer safe under their protection.
Perfect. Okay, print the last one. Be sure that the animation department gets that piece. And that's how we do it. No matter what you do in motion picture medium, it's an exercise in utilizing resources and technology.
You know, the sphere is always this object of mystery. People want to know what is it and what the hell are you doing. It's a way of sampling lighting in a particular location to see how the whole scene is illuminated.
Whenever we're doing a digital character, we always do a block through with the voice actor and Ewan in this case, so that they can get the timing and pacing and where their eye lines are.
I don't care about these stinking eye lines.
Who cares about eyelines?
Then we take the voice actor away, and he has to do the scene, pantomimes the scene.
The guy who's creating that character will create their responses off how you respond to their responses that aren't there. It's a nightmare.
That'll do nicely. As we're setting up to shoot a shot, I try and project myself down the line. How are we going to actually execute this shot?
Flash.
Jason's been measuring all the camera positions, height relative to set, that if it turns out later on we need to shoot a matching element, we can recreate that camera position.
It's imperative that a match mover from ILM be on set to take the set measurements and to place these track markers. Without a match mover, these track markers might not be in a shot, and it'll make it virtually impossible to recreate the camera move and to make a photorealistic environment.
A day to shoot, and probably for these shots, 4 or 5 months in post.
Once we get back to ILM, John and I would meet, and he and I'll just zip through the shots, and I'll say, okay, this shot's getting really close to animation, but I'm having some problems with getting the character to interact with this table. Can you help out there? So there's a lot of back and forth.
Now what do I do?
I go to ILM every Tuesday and Thursday morning, and I go over the work they're doing.
Locked out. Even I can't get past the security.
I go over on the computer the characters or the specific shots that they're working on.
The real breakthroughs, I think, with ILM were to take the strides and the inventions that have been created over the years and then try to streamline them and make them less expensive.
You have no idea what some of these things can look like or some of these things will be. So you just kind of, get out there and act like everything's normal.
It's challenging because there's nothing there, but it's like theater in that way, It's very demanding on the imagination.
When we started doing Star Wars, it was very hard to get a spaceship to fly and pan with it. Now it's just, we don't even think about it, it's so easy.
With the new digital technology and everything, I'm pretty much, whatever I can imagine, I can do. There are very, very few limits.
Because it's not really George Lucas, it's digital reconstruction of him.
It's all magic.
Must be difficult having sworn your life to the Jedi. Not being able to do the things you like.
I'll be with the people that I love.
Episode 2 is George's first real romance movie. It's still got, all of the classic Star Wars elements. Got a lot of battles and stuff, but the story is really centered around this love story between Anakin Skywalker and Senator Amidala.
In the earlier films, episodes 4, 5, and 6, there is a little kind of flirtation, but it's never carried very far. Obviously, Han Solo and Leia fall in love with each other.
You like me because I'm a scoundrel. I'm a scoundrel in your life.
I happen to like nice men.
But that isn't the sort of core of the story, and it takes place over 3 movies. This one, it's a much more condensed love story. There's still a lot of action and war. It's sort of a love story against the backdrop of a war.
When George first began to speak to me about episode 2, when George said to me, why don't you make a love theme? It's like the old Hollywood movies. It's introduced gradually when the lovers are reunited, not as lovers, but as acquaintances in the beginning of the film.
Anakin has been in love with Padme ever since he was 10 years old.
Are you an angel?
And he worshipped her when he was young. And now they're finally getting back together.
You're sweating. Relax. I haven't seen her in 10 years, Master.
When he first sees Padme, his attraction changes from when we first saw their relationship and how it left. It was a much more childlike affection.
Annie? My goodness, you've grown.
So have you. Grown more beautiful, I mean. Well, for a senator, I mean.
And he'll always be that little boy I knew on Tatooine.
Padme just thought of him as a little kid. So it's Padme adjusting to the fact that he's now a grown-up guy.
Sometimes we must do what is requested of us.
You've grown up. And all of a sudden he comes back and she's like, wow, you know, he's grown up into this handsome young Hayden Christensen. So their relationship really goes from this sort of her looking down on this younger guy to him sort of proving himself as a real force.
You are Annie! It is you! A Jedi! What do you know?
Actually, the undercurrent of the whole love theme is very touching, very sweet, and it's more like courtly love.
You're making fun of me.
No, I'd be much too frightened to tease a senator.
We have a much more romantic story, so that Padme's costumes are obviously more sultry in nature.
As George sort of progressed with the script, he sort of realised more that he wanted to show a softer, sort of friendlier side to Padme, where she could be looking sexy and gorgeous and young in skimpy clothes.
I think the biggest difference is I'm showing a bit more skin in this one. This is my sexed up version, I guess, of the Queen. I got over the hump of 18, so I'm allowed to show tummy now, I guess.
There's romance for, you know, the kids who love romance stories and young girls. Young girls will be in love with Hayden, and, you know, the guys are going to be excited because Anakin's character is exciting, Obi-Wan's character is exciting.
Escort the senator back to Naboo. She'll be safer there.
They have to travel together a lot because he's protecting her because someone's trying to assassinate her.
Don't do anything without first consulting either myself or the council.
Yes, Master.
He's constantly telling the Jedi Order that Anakin's not ready to be sent off on an assignment on his own. He says that his abilities have made him arrogant.
Excuse me. I'm in charge of security here, milady.
That's not a good thing to be, and it's dangerous. And then they don't listen to him. And we all know what happens in the end.
Throughout the film, you know, they're put in these very extreme settings because they're in hiding that really lend themselves to, you know, falling in love, and they're spending a lot of time in a lakeside palace or in, you know, grassy fields, and it's really conducive to two people finding very passionate emotions for each other.
So then they sort of have these encounters where they discuss their ideas and they discuss their, you know, lives, and he's trying to show off to her all the time, you know, probably in ways that he's not allowed to, you know, using sort of his Jedi tricks.
Padme is a very strong-willed person. You know, he's not so much attracted to the power that she holds in her political arenas, but rather the power and strength that she holds within herself. She's very beautiful and intelligent, and it would be easy for anyone, I think, to fall in love with her.
Padme is attracted to Anakin mainly for his looks. I mean, let's be honest. He allows her to be a little less serious about herself and laugh a little and, you know, fall in love.
The love story is a very classic love story of forbidden love. Two people who fall in love with each other when they really can't do that.
We could keep it a secret.
We'd be living a lie. I couldn't do that. Could you, Anakin?
It's a star-crossed set of lovers, really, where the lovers are separated by class or by family, as they are in Romeo and Juliet, or by rank, as they are in Episode 2.
Be mindful of your thoughts, Anakin. They betray you. You've made a commitment to the Jedi Order, a commitment not easily broken.
He understands that as a Jedi he's not allowed to fall in love, even though he feels so passionately for Padme, and it's this sort of, these conflicting emotions.
Well, there are Jedi rules, you know, and one of them is that you don't fall in love, and he breaks those rules.
He feels very passionately about becoming a great Jedi, but at the same time he feels so passionately for Padme, and it's that confusion that really causes him all of his anxiety.
It's the same struggle for Padme. She's the sort of the more mature one, the more rational one, the one that's not letting her emotions run away with her.
It's really a struggle for her to say, you know, can I be selfish and fall in love with myself when I have all these aspirations and all these things I need to accomplish?
So it's the struggle to sort of maintain some sanity in the overwhelming wave of chaos brought about by love.
He's holding me back!
I have a sense with Anakin that there's a dark side to him, and his dark side already clouds the relationship.
He does have an edge. He's got a sort of a James Dean sullen edge to him.
She sees this sort of darkness to him, but obviously that's always intriguing. Girls always like the bad boys.
The anger is a product of his confusion. He's very passionate about it, the path that he wants to take as a Jedi. You know, he's very determined, and he feels like he's being held back. He wants to break free of that, but at the same time, you know, he's found this love in his life, which takes him in a completely different direction.
The idealistic, sunny aspect, hopeful aspect of what we feel is balanced by the sense that experience gives us that these relationships never quite work out the way we idealize them, and something will happen to tilt it.
If evil can love, then what is evil? If, you know, love is what makes you human, and then is someone who is evil human still? I mean, it just makes all the questions involving the film a lot more complex.
You know, they fall in love, and the struggle is whether they should allow this to happen to their lives, even though they know it's going to be very destructive. You know, in the end, they do decide to give in to their emotions, and ultimately they will suffer all the consequences of that.
There's a lot of stuff that you've been thinking about for years, and now we get to deliver the Clone War. Okay, this better deliver.
One of the allures of going back and finishing the prequels was that, in fact, I would get to do the Clone War.
What I'm really hoping to feel from the audience is that it takes them back to their love of Star Wars.
I want to see them sink back into their chairs and just gasp, because they will see something that I think they've never seen before.
I want it to be as cool as I'd imagined it.
I want to blow people away with it, actually.
The kind of movies that I make, which are very action-oriented, very complex visually, I really couldn't do it without some kind of pre-visualization process.
The cost of making a movie and the cost of marketing a movie are so intense that we have to look for ways that makes us much more cost efficient, that allows us to be able to express ourselves in this huge world.
Pre-visualization has definitely been an increasing trend, whereas 6 or 7 years ago you would mainly have storyboards.
In the old days we would use those, but they don't tell you the movement. They don't help you with the cutting. The cutting is achieved by figuring out motion across a scene and when is the right time to cut. And you have a vehicle passing by and cut to a close-up of a character's reaction.
We have always had to use some kind of device to give you the sense of motion. For the end battle of New Hope, I used bits and pieces from documentary films about World War II and war footage of airplanes flying and that sort of thing.
Here they come!
On Empire Strikes Back, we had to do little cartoons of the walkers walking and the explosions and stuff. Return of the Jedi, we built little models and we took a video camera and we shot little videos of these little models on sticks going through the frame. And when we finally got to Phantom Menace, we were able to actually use digital animation to do our videomatics in a more sophisticated way. Eventually, we came to rely on that department to really define how the movie would go together.
And the best way to do that is to be able to create the semblance of film, as if you've gone out and shot with thousands of people. You can't do that on a storyboard, but you can do that when you pre-visualize a sequence within a computer.
When George first writes the script, he has in his mind what the movie's going to look like. When he goes to shoot it, it's remarkable to watch him shoot because he shoots like no other director I've ever seen. He's going and getting elements. He's not getting a finished scene. When Obi-Wan was walking around in Camino, George showed him concept paintings of, okay, now you're walking down the hallway and you're looking and you're seeing the cloning facilities, but there was nothing for him to see. So it's very raw and it's very rough, but what he's getting there, he's getting the Obi-Wan element. The pre-visualization guys are filling in what that hallway may look like. Imagine 2 shots. Obi-Wan's talking and then Lama Su's listening.
Master Cypher Dyas was killed almost 10 years ago.
How long do you want Lama Su to listen? What do you want Lama Su to do? So the animatics team will put in a rough Lama Su, and then George can cut that in the Avid and can start making decisions on how long do these shots need to be.
You pick up pieces of shots rather than shots as a whole, and then you construct the shot later. You're able to collect bits and pieces that go into the images separately, sometimes a year apart, and just stick them in. It's a very different way of approaching the medium.
It's virtual filmmaking, and it just is an enormous tool for everybody who actually wants to be able to explore and see it in real time.
It's a way of making movies where you don't do one process and then go on to the next process. It's like you do a little of this, a little of that. It's more like cooking, and it's more like painting. You know, you paint, you move it around, you kind of thing, you paint a little bit more.
He can shoot blue screen with nothing in there except for the actor. The Animax group can then fill in a huge city.
In film, it very much had developed along an assembly line fashion where you did this piece and that piece went to that piece. For me, I don't work that way. I'd much rather kind of go around and put things together, look at them, and then move them around again and look at them until I get them the way I like them. That can be very expensive. So since I have to finance my own films, I had to develop a system where I could have that kind of creative freedom and it wouldn't really destroy me financially.
We take our animatics and we build them piece by piece until it creates a sequence that would be almost the same as if we were shooting it real.
And that's a huge change in the movie process because it allows the artist to have much more control over the images and the type of images. You don't have to go out and sit on a mountain for 3 months waiting for the light to get just right. You can actually create it and make it be just right, the way you want it in your mind's eye.
We knew we had a speeder chase, and we knew basically what the action and the dialogue was.
The speeder chase started with a one-page summary that George had typed up, so I had the basic gist of who was there and what was going on. Storyboards were coming, drawings from the art department.
In order to start the process, we would take images that had an object moving across the screen right to left, up, down, going away from us, and that would show you the motion of what was happening. And then we would intercut that with the pilots and the people and all that sort of thing. We didn't have the pilots and the people yet. So Ben and the assistant editors would go out into a barn with a little blue screen and they would shoot various characters, you know, flying around in the cars.
Ben shot a lot of material of, I think of one of his daughters as Zam and a couple of the editorial assistants as Obi-Wan and Anakin.
We used the old land speeder down in the archives.
And we have a couple of lights. It's really Ben, myself, and a couple of other people.
We used George's Ferrari for the speeder, and I think we put a few scratches on the roof.
And we created this chase sequence.
If you'd spend as much time working on your saber skills as you do on your wit, young Padawan, you'd rival Master Yoda as a swordsman.
I thought I already did.
A sequence like the speeder chase, you really can't do it without animatics. It's all motion, it's all action. You really need to develop videomatics to kind of tell you editorially where you're going and how long the shots are going to be and whether it's working, because it's a purely kinetic thing. It's things coming at you, it's you falling down through things. It all has to do with movement.
Then he cuts it together, he shows it to George. George makes his changes. He said, God, I'd love to have a high shot here, or it'd be great to be low here. We should see the instruments now. And as those discussions progress over a number of days, we shoot it. You know, we'll have lunch, we'll go out and shoot for 3 or 4 hours, come back, dump it into the Avid, and then we just start to cut. And then George takes it and bends it and molds it.
And it gives you something to then sit down with the Videomatic guys and tell them kind of what you have in mind. And you can say, well, this is right, but this is going too fast, or move it up, move it down. And then they would turn that into a rough example of what we were thinking about.
Once Ben was done with his Videomatics, we were able to bring that into the digital realm and actually built the science fiction versions of all these things. The actual speeder, Zam speeder, digital proxies of our hero characters.
And then we'd take that and we'd blow it up, move it around, cut it out, change it around, and then give it back to the animatic department. They would then make a finer representation of that until we got the shots the way we wanted them.
We take that film, we bring it on the set, then we have a speeder on a gimbal on blue screen, and we're able to put huge plasma screens in front of the speeder so the actors can actually watch this bizarre cartoon in front of them. They can understand and interact with what's going on in this surreal blue screen world that they live in.
Which I think helped a lot, because otherwise you'd be directing a scene like that by yelling through a bullhorn. You'd say, okay, now this is going to happen. Turn left and right.
Okay, you're coming up on Sebulba. Sebulba's ahead of you there. You see him, he's maneuvering, he's flaming. He's exploded somebody in front of you, and bang, pieces flying past your head.
It's a very cumbersome way to get the actor to understand what's happening is to yell at them over a bullhorn. It's easier just to show them the film, and they react to it as if they were in it.
In an odd way, that Videomatic sequence became playback like you'd play back a pre-recorded song, and people might sing or dance to it as a guide.
That, if we had not shot with the animatics and pre-visualized the sequence, probably would have taken 3 or 4 days to shoot, but we cracked it in a day, and that is so helpful in terms of the schedule that we have. After I'd say the first cut, the first real rough cut, George felt there was a little bit that needed to take place in Reel 5.
The kinetic energy of the movie had picked up to the point where we were starting to get some momentum, and to stop and have dialogue at that point just didn't work. And the Droid Factory had lots of potential for an exciting sequence.
There's a great scene where Obi-Wan is looking down into basically the deep bowels of this droid factory, the churning wheels and droids being made.
So we see Obi-Wan's POV, and that piece of art had been approved by George and had been hanging on the wall for a while.
It tripped off a whole thing of expanding that and really let's go on, a fun adventure inside the droid factory.
The droid factory sequence came up, 8 or 9 months into the editing of the film. It was never originally part of the story, so it didn't get the pre-visualization treatment that we might have given it.
So one day we get this call from George, hey, come on downstairs, I've got an idea for a new sequence.
First, what I did is I did some storyboards with a storyboard artist, and I put them out, and I told them the ideas of what I wanted to happen.
In the droid factory in particular, it was really a point of pinning down an environment in the storyboard process. Where would actor be? How does George want to frame the character? Is it a close-up or a wide shot of the space?
And he's very specific when he's talking to us. He'll say, I want a close-up of Padme here. I want a shot that includes this robot arm threatening Anakin. These storyboards were a shooting schedule, basically, for George to frame the actors properly on these blue screen sets that they were building.
Then I went to London to set up the reshoots. I mean, this was the fantastic thing about it. We had a blue screen stage and a blue conveyor belt, and that was it.
They shot the characters running around on the blue screen, interacting, reacting to threats that were not there.
We shot the whole sequence in 4.5 hours with both Natalie and Hayden. We did it before lunch.
And then came back and cut that and gave it to the animatic guys.
When we are getting footage from those actors, really they're in a conceptual void. There's just a bunch of blue screen.
We chose 10 or 20 keyframes from the sequence to kind of flesh out in an illustrative sense. So then we would take whatever was existing in the shot, a door, Anakin and Padme standing by that door with the retracting drawbridge, and plot the perspective down from there, establish kind of a grid in 2D space, kind of go into it as a painting. Eric and I decided that this should be a smoky, very threatening environment. The reds, the magentas, kind of a hell like Dante's Inferno in Star Wars land.
I'm very keen on using color as a main element in telling the story. Each environment and each emotional complexity has its own color system. Sometimes it relates to characters, sometimes it relates to environments, and sometimes it relates to good guys, bad guys. And so Eric and Ryan were sort of the color police to say this is the color we want this sequence, this is the color we want that sequence. And a lot of the color is rather melodramatic and strong.
We talked a lot about the philosophy of the colors of the different areas, and I think they were very anxious to get a sense of progression. Eric actually established a color scripting of the entire sequence, plotting out the dramatic highs and lows, and this is where this big welder arm comes in and sparks are flying, so we knew that when we approached that production illustration, mood-wise and coloration-wise, it would be flashier than some of the somber scenes where we need to really concentrate on kind of the wheels turning in the actors' heads.
So by refining that design process, that is something more literal that the animatics team can start doing rough 3D model building.
And then we gave it to the guys upstairs, the animatic guys, and they just ran with it.
Creating the Droid Factory sequence was quite a challenge. We had really never tackled a sequence that involved 100% 3D props, environments, and stand-in characters. We really relied on Eric and Ryan's paintings for look and feel. Their paintings had incredible mood and story, and it really brought you into the feeling of the piece. The actual details of it a lot of it were left up to us.
We had some sketches of machines, but we didn't have a whole lot of detail stuff. So I took our team of painters and modelers and some of our key lighting people, and we went to a big car factory out in the South Bay. Those are very, very impressive spaces. They're, huge interior spaces, sparks flying everywhere. That was the sort of feel I really wanted for the factory, really dirty and smelly, so you could almost smell it.
Because these sequences were envisioned and put together well after principal photography was actually done, we had a lot less time to actually do them.
And they all went just absolutely nuts. I think they were working 20, 22 hours a day, sleeping upstairs, and they came out with this remarkable scene. The fact that the schedule was so short and it was such an effects-heavy schedule meant that the animatics had to be brought to a new level.
The animatic process and the term of making the movie got to be very sophisticated, and one of the best examples is the Droid Factory, because when we got the Videomatics for that, they were really great looking. And because it's a very intense action sequence with giant machines and things, when you see it in blue screen, it's pretty boring and silly, you don't know what's going on. But once you get those giant stamping machines and stuff cut in there, it's very powerful. And so in that particular case, the Videomatic department made a huge difference in our ability to visualize and follow the drama of the whole sequence.
By building these 3D models and timing out the sequences with the actors, they're able to merge the blue screen elements, block in shapes of the Droid Factory equipment. They will even introduce background elements, and that will be all sandwiched together, rendered out.
When we get into the animation, I will take the animatic, I will take my notes from shooting in Sydney, and then I sit down with George and say, okay, we're about to go into the sequence. This is my understanding of how the scene plays. And then he'll say, well, you've actually got a lot of freedom in here. The animatic is rough, or the animatic is very much what I want. You need to follow that very, very precisely.
The Videomatic department has become so sophisticated that you're getting almost completed shots.
It was extremely gratifying to be behind George while he was requesting changes and revisions. To have him actually look at the screen and question whether or not it was a final shot from ILM or an animatic.
ILM will go in and clean them up and finish them off and add the detail and make them show up so they work on a giant screen.
After ILM would do completed shots, Eric and Ryan then would come in and kind of bring them together, fix skies here or there, basically paint on top of their frames to kind of help them provide art direction.
We're doing a lot of the paintings digitally, and it's really about creating a synthesis of painting to the camera arts to modern filmmaking.
We were very excited about being able to attack it from beginning to end and follow it through. That's why this was kind of unique.
Eric and Ryan, they're not just concept supervisors. They create a look, but what they have in addition to that is extraordinary ability to take a sketch, a painting, and show us the process of how we make it real. The Clone War, basically, we bypassed storyboards altogether and went straight into animatics.
It was a huge sequence. In the movie, it has literally thousands of characters. Droids, clones, troops, ships.
Basically, we got a page that said, and all hell breaks loose.
An incredibly complex, dense scene to do.
The Clone War shots are really big, epic shots with lots and lots going on. And it wants to look like a big, momentous battle because it's been talked about for so long. There are references to it in episode 4.
You fought in the Clone Wars?
Yes. I was once a Jedi Knight, the same as your father.
So it's been part of the Star Wars lore for years, and fans have been wondering, what's that going to look like?
The animatic for the end battle was really a sum of about 2 years' effort. Everybody had a very firm idea of what they could do, what we could get away with, the amount of time we had. They were much more confident in their ability to do exciting shots, and everybody came together as a unit on that project.
By the time we got to the end of the film, which is where the end Clone War and that sort of thing, they got very fast in their ability to develop very, very complicated shots in a very short amount of time.
We didn't really know what George's reaction was going to be, because we were pulling in a lot of new kind of camera moves and a lot of new shot angles that hadn't really been typically associated with the end battle sequences of, say, episodes 4, 5, and 6.
When I said, look, I just want some great battle shots. So I let them sort of have their own way with some of those shots, just come up with some great shots, and I'd use them. So that really inspired him.
We put in a lot of extra zooms. We put in a lot of extra camera shake, like you have to get to this situation, or you have to catch the action that's going to be happening. It was the final battle of the sequence. It was a very exciting thing to do. It was what everybody had been waiting for. And at that point, everybody just kind of exploded creatively.
They put a lot of time and effort and creativity into it and came up with some amazingly complicated and interesting shots.
They were churning out 30, 40 shots a day. And, after a week, you got 200 shots. And it's amazing how much you can play with that.
We took those, started cutting them in, made some modifications. Some of them we couldn't use, some of them we could. And then we started to build other shots around those shots and to build it into a full and complete sequence.
When we saw the animatic of the Clone War, I had goosebumps. I rarely get that from an animatic. And animacs are usually so rough. But the animacs team at the ranch had done such a fantastic job with the Clone War. It had handheld cameras. It had ships flying in. It had missiles spinning around. It had these big, huge walkers. It had everything that we, as teenagers of the 70s and early 80s, saw in those original movies. And that's what you do it for.
We're going through a kind of evolutionary process when I talk about digital technology. Most directors have no clue how to be able to use it. They're just learning.
Using all this new technology for me is a complete learning process.
What George does, then Jim Cameron will do, and that'll turn everybody and make it even bigger, and then Spielberg will do it, and Zemeckis and Ron Howard and all the directors who love this technology.
George challenges us every time he comes up with one of these ideas.
I push people a little bit farther than I think they can actually go, and then they always surprise me by getting there.
He's always trying to take things a little bit further, and that in turn makes us want to kick it up a notch, and it's kind of a brutal cycle, actually, because we are constantly trying to outdo ourselves, and George gets used to that, and so we've got to up it a notch every few months.
And then I say, well, gee, this is great. If they can get there, then I'm going to push them a little bit further and see if they can get there.
I sort of feel like you're part of some weird science experiment. It's like, okay, let's see what they can do without. Okay, let's take away their food. They're still alive. Okay, great. Let's take away their water. Still going. Okay, let's turn down the oxygen level. So they keep saying, okay, you guys have to do more with less.
Sometimes they don't make it, but almost always they do.
We did it, so I guess they were right.
I'm constrained by my own perception of what they can accomplish. And I've learned, especially in the digital world, that I can actually push them a lot further than I think. And it opens up my creative process, because I go, well, what if we have him do this? And and in the real world, you wouldn't even think of something like that because it'd be way too hard. But in the digital world, you say, well, okay, we'll do that. We'll try that, see what happens.
That was the challenge for us, to be able to work closely enough and be capable of delivering everything that we possibly could for him to express himself.
Very rarely do I not get what I want. There are a few times when we all sit down and give up and say, this is too far, too fast. But they know that eventually I'll come back to it on the next film, and we'll try again.
There was a number of us who had been wanting to do a computer-generated Yoda, and after Phantom Menace finished, we started talking about it again, and coming up with the idea of, well, maybe we should do it between the shows, building the new computer-generated Yoda as a proof of concept for George.
All right.
So, where are you at?
First question, we were talking about the eyelids and how that they don't kind of match the, if we're going with the Empire as reference.
We are going with Empire.
You look at it him right here, it looks like there's this kind of weird skewing going on in his face. And I'm thinking that could be the way Frank is holding the puppet. And so what's happening is that's pulling down at the center. So I've been kind of working on that, and I've got kind of a skew shape for that. Let's see where that is here. I just help give him a little bit more of that.
For me, the mouth also, the way that the lips push together, it's almost like it pushes together and in a little bit.
Right. That's where I guess if his fingers are pulling back slightly.
Yeah, it must have been.
Some of that I've been working on for the mouth. I'm calling them pursed.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
I'll get the animators to do those 4 shots we were talking about, and I'll take them up to George in a week or so.
Okay.
And hopefully he goes for it, and we can convince him that we can do it all CG.
Rob has a test to show you of Yoda.
Working on a CG Yoda. And these are animated renders, so they don't have any of the texture or paint or 2D work put onto them, but it shows some performance. Just want to get your input on what you thought. All right.
Its energy surrounds us, binds us. Luminous beings shall be, not just through matter.
Very good.
And where you should not. For my ally is the Force, and a powerful ally it is.
We're still sort of figuring out how much lip sync we really want, how much articulation of the lips.
And where you should not.
Yeah, that looks
For
good.
my
though.
ally is the Force.
It shouldn't be too much because you don't want it to sort of really contrast with the puppet too much.
That's right.
Needs it. Makes it grow.
Very good. Fantastic.
Thanks.
No.
We've been trying to also get some of the ear wiggle that's in the puppet and,
Right.
and put it into the animation here.
You also have to be careful about how stiff he is.
Yes.
You know, he's stiff because he's a puppet. So I think you can loosen up the stiffness a little bit. But otherwise, it's great. I think what we may try to do, just as a courtesy as much as anything else, is see if we can get Frank up to just look at it.
I would love that. I would love that.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
I want that rock creature.
Okay. Hopefully he will pick a Dexter Jester.
Oh, so Dexter Jester is on the table here somewhere.
That's the plan.
Cool.
They did them in 1 week.
Those are great.
Morning.
Oh my God.
Busy beaver. And so hopefully Dexter Jester is in here somewhere.
Yeah, he's the key, isn't he? Between these two. And the winner is? Do you have a thought? Did you have to animate this?
What's his personality?
We haven't quite. It's actually Ernest Borgnine. Well,
Well, if I throw my 2 cents in here, I would vote for going as non-human as possible and make
well,
it
that's
a challenge.
That's what I'm trying to do. But they're all in the end when you get into them. I mean, it's got to have personality and you got to have character.
Well, so I think this guy's got a lot of possibilities with the gullet.
Well, what would happen if you took this guy's helmet and put it on this guy? So we put a different top head on him. It would give him more of a personality. Okay, so that's a start. Well, let's keep these guys in the back room. Never know when you need a good alien.
Okay, the hair is still a work in progress. It's a little thin and transparent, and I think...
that was a little bit too much of it, too.
Yeah, I think a little bit too much on top, and it's all a little straight.
That's a little brown. He's got sort of got whiter hair, I think.
Yeah, it's a little hard to control, so we're still arriving.
After you hit 300, boy, the hair turns gray.
Yeah, some of the reference we've got includes some that's on the front side of the ear, more like sideburns. We have reference match to.
Eventually it will come out that this is a digital one. Although I'd like to make everybody think that we did it with a puppet. Surprise them when they get down to the sword fight. It occurred to me that it may be wise for us to build Doku as a computer character too, because the amount of fighting he does and all the things that are going on is probably going to be the easiest way for us. Shooting these kinds of fights live action hasn't worked out very well. I don't think. You know, the wire work, once you start getting into wire work and you get into doing these little bits and pieces, you're really stuck. Whereas if we have digital characters, you know, I can just stand there and shoot it. The fun part about it is that you got the retired Jedi and you got this incredibly old frog who's also, we've seen him, but we've never actually seen him fight. This will be the first time you actually see him pull out that little laser sword of his and go to town.
Yeah.
So and that's something that everybody's waiting for. So we have to make it look not funny.
Yeah.
And we're starting the water creature, the Camino people.
Colonians.
And so we have 3 subtle variations, and they could all work in the same family. Or ideally, if you could pick kind of one direction to go, that would be the generic, and then we can make variations off of that.
I sort of like this one.
This one here? Okay.
Whose skin are you using?
His name's Joseph Goldstone, and he works here. And he kindly agreed to be our alien skin person.
We have some questions about a couple of things about Yoda. One is, we're trying to get a little translucency into those ears, and we're wondering what kind of blood he would have. You know, is he going to have pink? Would it be like pinkish showing through there, or would it be a pale green?
I don't know. But I could say green, probably, knowing him as I do. The secret is to make him look like a rubber puppet.
Okay.
The problem we got to last time is that when they made the upgrade, it didn't look like the rubber puppet anymore. You know, so then everybody complained that he didn't look real. But they were saying, well, he looks better than he did before. Yeah, they made him better, but people don't like that. They want it to look like he did before in the first film.
Right.
So I would go for these.
Just match those.
And match these, and then, yeah, if we get this down perfect, then what we have to do is go back to the last film, and go back to Phantom Menace, and maybe adjust it ever so slightly so that it's, you know, we conform slightly to Phantom Menace.
Okay.
If we establish him as sort of looking different every 10 years or so, Anakin looks considerably different. I can't do that.
Okay.
Why did you become Jedi?
Must because of my father, I guess.
Father? How for Jedi was he?
You can see how, specifically, what I call the dirt, or how he moves around. He's really study it, what Frank is doing, and extrapolate where his wrist is inside that head. You can almost feel the hand kind of moving like that. There's a tension in there that he's obviously doing, but there's also sort of a messiness to how he moves. We want to put that into our character. The junior animators are going to have a tendency to move him around a little too smooth. We really want to keep an eye on that. This also brings up another thing. Check out the lip sync.
Much anger in him. Life is faulty.
Okay, so we need to keep an eye on that too. People have this wonderful memory of what they thought they saw in this movie, but now when we fast forward 20 years ahead, if we make him too much like the puppet, I don't think people will go for it. The audiences won't believe in it. So we're going to be dancing this line of how much articulation do we put in the face, how much articulation do we specifically put into the mouth, and then for the lip sync, what can we form and what can't we form. We have to find the balance of what Frank was able to achieve with the puppet and then what we can do with CG. But we also have to remember who he is inside him. I really want to have a sense of this character thinking. I want you guys to be thinking about what's going on, what's the subtext of the scene, what's actually going on in his head. We want to think about who he is and why he's in that scene and why is he specifically in that shot.
You are reckless.
Sorry. Sorry.
Can I have my helmet now, please?
Okay, let's have the bell up and we'll do a take.
Back side, please.
Okay.
B-77 Jackson, take one.
Right. Number 7.
Bobba, is your father here? Yep. May we see him?
Sure. Tonwee's here.
Cut. Open door A. Do one without Rena.
Oh. Kitty.
Now you can look at X. You can look at red X there. And now look at you in there, mate. Look at me, mate. Go, John.
You see the model? So that's going to be me on the day. That's what I'm really going to look like.
It looks like a suit that's really hard to get into. It's very tight.
We're set.
Bobba, is your father here?
Yep.
May we see him?
Sure. Dad, Tonwee's here.
Now we're still rolling.
Stand a little bit, John. There you go.
That was it. Okay, now we've cut.
Sunday morning, a thing on National Geographic. They had some very, very strange and interesting eyes. So it might even be worth it to get somebody to National Geographic, one of those things, and see if you can go through everything you can get on close-ups of eyes.
Okay.
Just for research. Yeah. Because I think for him, we may want to play with his eyes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. There it is. Text for Jessica. But,
Wow. And then showing it to Susie. Isn't he nice?
Approximately what your husband looks like without his forearm.
Hello, handsome.
There you are.
That's you.
So you can have a sort of a salt and pepper mustache, and the shell is going to be a little more green.
And does this wobble when you talk?
Yes.
You're going to have that. That's fantastic.
Victor 35, take 3, B, Mark.
Set.
And action!
Hey, old buddy! Oh,
So, what can I do for you?
Okay, cut! And then we'll try to...
Okay, we'll do reference take.
Maybe come out the door.
hey, old buddy! Oh.
So, my friend, what can I do for you?
Where do you think he wants to step off
He
from?
ran from...
Yeah, look at the days.
He ran
out of camera back
ran
here.
out, yeah. So we'll put our apple box around here somewhere, this kind of height. And he'll step off there, whack.
Okay. Because I think what we want to get is a camera that would pick him up, running in the frame, pan with him, and go out. Could he run from that back?
Oh, yeah, I mean...
Clear everything, he can come straight through there.
Oh, yeah, I mean, he can, from over there would be fantastic.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're taking the shutters out?
Just the middle
Just the
one.
middle section.
Yeah.
Yeah, middle section of shutters
And then
out.
Rob's gonna, when we do the exterior, Rob's going to...
All right. In this sequence, there will be some special effects to do stunts, which would be dangerous to do. The next shot, Obi-Wan, is going to be animated completely. And that involves integrating one of shooting with shots of a digital Obi-Wan.
You must know.
Can you get it there, Mark?
If you want it there.
Chelsea?
3, 2, 1, go!
Okay, do a lens change on the Techno, Craig.
Well, they changed Yoda on you. So now you're up against it. Left forward, yeah. Right.
I make absolutely no comment at all about that.
You will have to look at that.
I didn't think you'd do that to me, George. I really didn't.
You can deal with the back of his head.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I've probably done more sword fights on celluloid than any actor in history, I should think, and I've got the scars to prove it. And this fight is greater than anything I've ever been involved in. You notice the phrase I use, I've ever been involved in, because I don't do all that much of it. I physically can't. My hands and my arms will move very fast, my legs won't, not anymore. Most of it is done by my stunt double, who is absolutely superb.
All right, you'll be here. We'll keep you over there.
But I understand that when you see his face, mine is superimposed by a computer. So it will look as if I, the actor Christopher Lee, is involved in one of the greatest fights ever seen on the screen. A long time ago, 40 years ago, we relied so much on performance. Performance from everyone. Now, in this kind of movie, in some respects it's more difficult, because you don't know what is in front of you in the scene. But again, it comes down to performance. You have to have a very vivid imagination. If you have that as an actor anyway, it's a help. You've got to make the audience believe what you're saying is true and what you're doing could happen. It's a terrific challenge. It's an even bigger challenge when, in a sense, they know it can't.
And action.
But during that hour and a half or 2 hours, maybe it can.
Right. Cut. Okay, we'll do a reference take.
Our double was doing all the sword fighting, just against nothing for where he's fighting Yoda. That'll be challenging. I mean, and it has to be handled well, because it does have the potential of being unintentionally funny if it's not done right. You have this tiny little 2.5 foot tall frog creature who's running around with these lightsabers fighting somebody who's over 6 feet tall. If not handled just right, it's going to look silly.
Okay, the take, wind up. Set.
Well, here we are. It's the last day of shooting on episode 2. It's been a fun time. Good crew. I've got a lot of work ahead of me now. Next Monday is when it really starts for me. This sequence, we're doing a lot of shots with Obi-Wan as a full CG figure. So we're going to have to do the next generation of clothing and the next generation of hair, both in terms of how they move and what they look like. It's, what we had before was fine for the shots we used it in, but it wouldn't hold up for what we need to do with it this time. So I'm going to see just what kind of shots can we do with these figures and how hard can we push it.
We're starting to rough in Yoda and the kids.
Right. I mean, here he looks like he's walking a little fast.
Yeah.
It's better if he is a cranky old man.
Cranky old guy. Frank said, I should also be thinking about how sore he is. He said when he was puppeteering it, he always was concerned about Yoda's back and his neck hurting and his feet hurting and all that. And he's this old 800-year-old guy, and he said that I was making him look like he was only 400. So.
I agree with that. Doesn't look a day over 403.
403. So I showed your Yoda in progress, JTT-220A.
Yeah. Oh, you showed that?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Because I wanted to have the discussion with him about Yoda's speed and how far he was walking and where he was getting.
Okay.
He felt that the speed was okay, but he does want us to finish his walk and then sort of do that. You know, it's been a bit of an effort to get across the floor.
Okay.
Just try and get a little, probably in this walk, since we're now going to see him walking towards us, a little less bounce in him.
Okay.
And then when he gets there, let's have a little bit of a recovery, which we hadn't done before, simply because there was no breathing. So we're going to go ahead and do that. But he can look here and then look there and then look there if you wanted. But we should, when we move the eyes, we should move them and then lock in on a kid and then lock in a kid. All the kids are off screen.
Okay.
But he felt that where you were going with the shot was right. He just felt some of the actions that you were doing with the head in terms of turning were a little too young. Okay. We should probably try to slow them down a bit, and I would put a little bit of bobble in them as he moves across. Okay. Keep them the same speed, and we'll walk them through.
Okay.
Alrighty? Rest of it's working fine. It likes everything else, but we just want to make sure we get that done.
All right.
All right? Thanks, buddy. A lot of the last movie was a single character, Jar Jar, following the Jedi. In terms of 2001, those were pretty easy shots. They weren't at the time, but this time, whenever we go to see digital creatures, they tend to be a lot of them. So we're moving up towards something like 50 or 60 animators by October, and we'll run with that big crew from October to February, and then we'll do the rapid descent, which we did last time as well. Hey! How was she? 350. You got a final on the performance and the sim and everything. KMJ 350.
Ah,
done.
Just like that.
See, I've come bringing happy news.
Cool.
And then there's another Tom V shot I want to give you. The big walk in.
Okay. This one.
Yeah. We'll use the same walk that you had. She starts from a stationary position.
Okay.
She follows Obi-Wan. You may have to adjust the speed in that section.
Right.
Alrighty?
Okay, cool.
I showed the JTT 120 shot to George this morning for blocking. He felt that the trajectory where he's walking is fine.
Okay.
Overall, his comment in terms of all the Yoda walking shots was he felt that we need to make him look older. That he needs to have a little bit more labored in his walk. Sure. You know, when he gets going, might be a little slower as he gets going, and then probably less bounce in his step. Okay.
And is that for 100 too?
Yeah, anytime he's moving. Basically what Frank Oz told me was anytime he moved the puppet anywhere, when he got to the end of it, end of its movement, he would put a little breathing in. Like it'd been a bit of an effort for him to get there. This is a marathon. You really have to think of it that way, and I have to coach the crew on that because a lot of them come on and they're used to working on commercials and they got 6 or 8 weeks and they're like, they pound on it and they're done. Well, that's not this show. You're on it for 12 months and you've got hundreds of shots, not 50 shots.
Right now we're scanning maquettes. We're recording the surface of sculpture and creating a map that we can output into a 3D program in the computer.
And this is where he's at.
Are we able to work with the posture at all? Like from
Oh
side
yeah.
view?
Oh yeah. See, now what I've done is I've taken the pick and lined it up with this and put the head where it should be at. And like I was saying before, there's a bit of a difference between what you're getting here and what you're getting here.
Right.
Because he is leaning over.
Right. But you put yours back up.
I put my back up like that. So he's going to look a little bit taller when you compare the two.
Okay.
Those lower arms can also counterweight
Yeah.
the belly too. See how in the pose he's got the arm back.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. You haven't got arm in place yet for the lower one.
No, not for the lower ones. Not until I get this one how I
The way
want it to
you like
look.
it? Sure.
Because there's no sense in sculpting two arms.
No, I'm still trying to figure out what we're gonna do with those second set of arms, in terms of how he's gonna walk with them.
Is he talking out of the right side the whole
He's
time?
gonna talk out of the middle of his mouth.
Middle
I
of his
think.
mouth,
Watching the guy on set, he talked out of. I mean, he sort of went all over the place, which is great. So it won't be like Watto where we're talking out of one side.
As animators, we handle Yoda's face and the mouth and the expressions and all that stuff. Then it'll go to the cloth people. And there's the textures that are put on and the lighting and the hair and all that that'll flesh it out and make him look a lot more real. I always perform my stuff first. I just act it out and film myself and see what I do, see where my eyes go. It's really subtle, the differences between what's overacted and what's not enough to get the point across.
Master Jedi, so good to see you. The Prime Minister expects you.
Unexpected?
Of course. He is anxious to meet you. We were beginning to
See, as he goes here, he starts looking left to right.
Yeah, I think it's because we're not seeing the pupils, but we can certainly spin it around some more.
Yeah, I would, make it stronger.
Stronger.
It's always difficult if his head is one way and his eyes are another way, especially in something like this where we don't quite know whether the eyes are going to work at all. But now he's looking way off here.
Yeah.
And he should always keep
the
looking
eyes are
to
over
the
here, but
keep
I
him
see what
always
you're
looking
saying.
off to the left.
Okay.
Not to the right.
Okay. I've been working on Obi-Wan's hair, spline, stuff. And this is what we haven't seen rendered since Howard was away on Friday, but what I've been doing is adding more hairs in here, guide hairs, and trying to break this up and get some of these curls. So it's just curving under in one big flow.
Alright. I'm in the process of just putting them all together. I'm rendering out everything, so double checking all the little pieces on his garment. And then
has he got more wrinkles on his pants?
I think the simulation is going to do all of it now, so it may be a little hard to prove it until he's walking around.
Right.
Okay. I think that's probably the only. It's just sort of a placeholder. So.
That looks quite reasonable in this form.
So here's the robe again. Still got some collision things we're going to work out.
Oh, it's going to be great then.
And then as soon as we get the tunic, I'll start playing with some tunic ideas.
Yeah. How to get the hood to stay on the top of his head.
Well, we can do that. At the moment, this was the Kinney one, and it just slid off. But if we angle the initial position, it'll fall on his head, and then we'll just keep the friction high, and it'll stay on his head. So.
Still a work in progress, but I want to make sure we're heading in the right direction. We talked about the Jojimbo.
Right. I think it's good.
Okay.
I think what we need to do on this, when we get down to it, I think it sort of demands in a way that we are tighter on him.
Right.
And that maybe we pull back and maybe even come around. Is it possible to come around?
Well, we can probably use another plate.
He's wearing his robe in this?
That's right, yes.
So at the beginning, do we want the robe to be out revealing the saber so we can see it at the start? Or can it come from inside the robe out?
Well, the other thing he could do is he could pull with his hand. He could sort of, pull it open,
like the gunfighter.
Like Clint would do.
In terms of facial expression, where we're going with that?
It's like a little.
It's like concern,
gremlin.
some effort.
Little demon.
Yeah, so it becomes a little bit more of the evil.
Yeah, he's got to turn from this funny old man to a
the gremlin.
Tough Sergio Leone killer. Sergio Leone could do it with Henry Fonda. We can do it with Yoda.
Here we go. It's 55. All right, so show me where you are with this wobble.
I've got the shapes made now.
Okay.
So we have a shape to deflate the airbag.
Fantastic.
And then also we have, just so it doesn't look too linear, we've got something that we can control in
one
each
side or the other?
One side or the other to make it a bit more uneven as it deflates.
Great.
So there's different shapes for the inflated and deflated wobbles and stuff.
Oh, that's going to work brilliantly.
There's some funny little plaques on the side. Give it away.
Let the hands be. Have a little. It'd be
flow.
very. Yeah, that's where you really see it.
Yeah.
See that? I guess it's hidden back there on this one, so it's.
We can accentuate it
here,
from different
It's
angles.
this arm
it's
here.
this arm.
This has got a very nice.
Yeah. It's got a
kind of
figure eight.
flows, yeah. They're very good.
Okay, great.
This is intended to be sort of a test shot to kind of work out a lot of the issues with doing digital doubles. It's got our digital Obi-Wan in there, although this didn't really show his face. But it represented one of the more demanding in terms of being close to camera and big in frame.
Well, that's pretty good. It's a good start. Jango looks good. I don't know whether he's real, but
Well, he's the CG Jango.
yeah.
I think where this has been leading is that we're
getting more confident that we'll be able to handle all the digital double shots.
Okay.
There's plenty of shots that you just don't want to even attempt with computer graphics. So if we can shoot that with the actor, we should shoot it with the actor. And then there's others that are quite obviously in the other category that you could never do that with the actor. And then there's more in the gray, and that's specifically why we chose that shot to work on, was because that was in the gray area. Well, you could shoot it; it'd be a pain, but you could shoot it. But if we can do it with the digital double and it'll work out all right, then that's the preferred way.
Okay. Now, what we've been doing is we started. Look at this. You got this? We started to work on Yoda fighting. Just trying to figure out what he's going to look like when he's moving around. And so we have our first version of this. These are all, of course, work in progress. Boom. Okay, here we go. But this is just looking at how does he move.
I would say he would move faster.
Okay.
I mean, it's going to be pretty important that he
really
move fast enough to where we can barely see him, because then it'll all be credible. Once you start to actually see what he's doing, it's going to start getting a little funky, I think, in terms of...
Okay.
And the way he's moving now in terms of animation, his feet, I would think of him more like a frog. If anything, he would spring around to where he's going.
Okay.
It's big thighs.
Okay. We'll try some of that.
Huge thighs.
We got our
Kermit thighs. See, it's Kermit. What we've done is we're going to blend Kermit the Frog with Miss Piggy. This is actually the illegitimate child of Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy.
Oh, man.
We've never discussed this before. And don't let it get out, because if that hits the National Enquirer, we're all dead.
It's a very disturbed picture in my head right now.
Grave danger, you are. Grave danger, you are.
It's almost like he's come to life, like he's become real. I came from hand-drawn animation, and with the computer, I mean, you can put these characters in a shot with a live-action character and have them interact and get all the subtleties as well, like in their facial expressions. It's really good. We're studying reference, and we're watching our actions in the mirror, and I mean, we're putting that in frame by frame. I can look at certain shots and I can tell who's done which shots. I can see the characteristics in there. I'm sure I put myself in my shots. I can't tell, but I'm sure other people can probably tell.
This was working on what we talked about before, where he exits out of the bottom frame and he enters the top of frame. So something like that.
Looks good.
And now he swings forward on one hand.
Yep.
And we'll send down on the clothing team as well. Digital stunt people.
Much safer.
Much safer. We've only one of our digital stunt people has been injured so far.
Hello, Frank. Can you hear me? Rob is here. He's hiding. Rob should be sitting right behind me. There's Rob. Can you see him?
Hi, Rob. How you doing?
Yeah.
How's the animation going, guys?
I think it's going well.
You know, I must say these guys have done a great job. I think you'll be proud.
Great. Good. I can't wait to
They're
see it.
upholding your tradition, and you know, it's...
Yeah, they don't whine like I do when I'm on the set, do they?
yeah, they do. They do. They follow you. They follow your every footstep.
There's more of us.
Yeah, it's a chorus. So we're not really worried about sync.
Okay.
But we'll do it to the picture so we get a sense of timing and whatnot.
Okay.
And here we go.
Exceptional skills, has he?
Sorry, that was bad. I popped.
Okay. We'll still call it take one, and we'll do take two.
Exceptional. Okay.
Exceptional skills he has.
He has.
Exceptional skills he has.
Yep, that was good.
Exceptional skills he has.
Great. That's good.
It's so nice to see him physically freed up like this.
Yeah, you wait. You know.
He can become so much more of a character.
Yeah, wait till we get down to the end.
Much to learn. You still have.
Okay, a little stronger.
Much to learn. You still have.
That's better. That's good. I like that one.
The shroud of the dark side.
son, the Clone War, has.
That was great. So that's it.
That's it.
So they were going to.
They're trying to see what tape.
They were trying to see if they could find a little piece that has the animation of you being Rambo.
Right.
You will like it. It's something we've never seen in Yoda before. But it really is. Yeah, you can have those.
Well, it's great how it can have different levels of the character. That's great.
So, well, here's this little piece. This, again, it's not the finished. It's just the very first rough thing. But you do get a sense of what he looks like, and I think he's going to work out great. What do you think?
Pretty cool.
The new Yoda.
Pretty cool.
This is us working on digital Doku. It's still very much a work in progress. It's still very rough, but we want to show you an idea that we're having. So he's flying in the air. We're going to have him digitally land on 2 feet.
Okay.
And he's going to come up. We're going to match into the the live action, keeping the digital head.
Okay.
And let me show you its speed. It's still very rough, but I want to make sure you're okay with the idea. Okay. It's fairly challenging to get that to work, but we'll. I want to make sure we're going down the right road here.
Oh, Marty!
Yeah, this was a big deal shot.
This is the render with Dexter without the clothing simulation done yet.
Right.
And the rough animation model stand-in for Obi-Wan to figure out the hand placement.
Okay. Well, I've been speaking to John Knoll, and what we're going to do is we're going to use Ewan's head, and we're going to replace everything else with a CG version of Obi-Wan. So the arms and the hands, you're going to end up animating them so you know exactly where they are. So you're going to have to watch out for examples like where Dexter's hand and Ewan's elbow go through each other, because we're going to have a collision object for that hand. So you'll probably in that case have to lower Dexter's hand, because once they turn that into collision, the clothing will be rippled like that. You know, it won't be able to pass through.
Sure.
Okay. George, this is Warren.
Hi.
He's working on he's one of our clothing leads, and he did this movie for me to show you what this is still a work in progress. He's been doing all the great work on Yoda's clothing in the whole movie with James Tooley. But so this is still working on it, but this is taking Tim's latest action and then putting clothing on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was afraid it was going to fly off of him, but it actually.
Well, all right. The thing. Stop. Go to the last frame. Okay. Because there's a real telltale moment there.
Okay. Here we go.
There. Is there a way, and it happens throughout, for this to billow ever so slightly and not sort of wrap around him in an ugly way the way it does?
Sure.
I mean, if you go back, I mean, there's it's here. It's.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
All I'm saying is it's a place like this where it would catch the wind, sort of. It's much more kind of the romantic version rather than the reality version. I mean, we can still keep some of this reality, but when he does a quick swing or he jumps up, rather than have the thing sort of go up over his head, it sort of goes out. And so we need a little bit of, as much as anything else, sort of kind of artistic animation that is not technically correct, but is romantically correct.
In the first film, the characters that we were animating, for the most part, were pretty broad. This film, for us, was a bigger challenge in terms of having a lot more dramatic acting coming from the characters, as opposed to just comedic acting or simply action, on top of trying to be very naturalistic and subtle with the performances. We have all the realism issues of cloth and weight and so forth to deal with. With the Kaminoans, they're tall and graceful, and it's tricky to do that and at the same time have a sense of weight and substance so that they don't just feel completely floaty.
KOJ 290.
Still needs work on the rope.
Whoa! You know what? I would love to have those hands separated more. I love how you're pulling them together so we read it they're being lassoed. Yeah. And I'd love to get that other hand, just another half a hand or a hand width further away. So you get to read that.
And I would, you've got them kind of like this if you're camera. Mm-hmm. I'd put this other hand more like this. Because the thing is, the thing we struggled with originally is that, he's using the Force to get his thing, and we've never seen a Jedi use two hands. And I just don't want it to look like he's doing this to get the thing. I want it to be really clear that he's sticking his hand out to get the lightsaber, and this one's just kind of for balance. I don't know what it's, you know. But if you put it like this, then it looks like he's. So just it's the same.
Yeah, but put your
place
hand
and
down
space, but just
and then pull it out here.
Yeah, pull it out
I
there.
want it like further
and just
apart.
drop the fingers a little bit.
And then I want you to pose the hands like this. And then I want you to go like this.
You know what I love is this little micro acting moment that's happening right here with his face. He's like looking, oh, it's happening. Oh, that's no good. Oh.
And he looks and watches the saber go by.
Whoa, that's great. That's great.
The shroud of the dark side is fallen. Gun is Clone War.
Nice. So it's all perfect up until the very end.
Okay.
The last 25 frames are the goof ones.
The goof ones?
Yeah. Go back to the last frame.
Okay. That's the last frame.
Yeah. Slightly too happy.
Slightly too happy. Okay.
But smug.
Okay.
Compensated. He was too sinister before.
Oh, so we went from sinister to smug.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we know how to
Yeah.
be
Well,
smug.
he needs to be worried.
Okay.
You need to get a concerned look.
Okay. Will do.
Yeah, it doesn't look like we're getting a sheen off the horn. Imagine that there's a light up on the ceiling somewhere, and I just wanted to kind of get something that looked like a specular highlight across some of that. And seeing as the horn is not super shiny, it would be a pretty broad highlight.
Okay.
And maybe just moving it around a little bit.
And my question is there any way of using the mechanism?
Right. So maybe something like that. Although I think you might have to be around a little bit further. It's just I want to get the highlight more in the flat part and less out on the edge. There we go. All right. Why don't we go back around just a little bit. All right. Well, that kind of reads as a specular highlight now. And it's kind of in the right place.
Lights off or off?
Well, I think that looks good.
Now this shot we've started to call the Widowmaker.
All right. I can't wait to see.
This one.
This one. Such an innocent looking shot.
I know.
Such an innocent little thing. The Clone War has begun. Come on, guys. How hard is that?
I don't know.
The Clone War has begun.
The director has approved it a couple of times.
And then unapproved
it. And then unapproved it.
Acting is always the hardest part.
Victory, you say, Master Obi-Wan, not victory. The shroud of the dark side has fallen. Begun. This Clone War has.
Oh, come on, guys! Now, that's pathetic.
Well, I know. I'm trying to push it as far into the pathetic as possible. So
Yeah,
that
but
you
that's
can say,
really pathetic. He's not
okay.
sad. He's...
Look how sad he is.
Yeah, I know, he's really sad.
He's
like,
really sad.
He's sad.
Because I keep getting these notes saying, has to be a little sadder, has to be a little sadder.
Well,
so I said,
sorry,
go
sad.
sad.
All right, sad,
Really
sad is not the right
All
word.
So I got the right reaction. Good.
Sad is not the right word.
Look how sad.
Yeah, poor little Yoda. Poor little Yoda. No, it needs to be.
Just,
we've done it before.
A dry year in the
We've done it before. He's
concerned.
he's reflective. He's
Right.
concerned.
Right.
He's upset.
Okay.
He's not angry.
Right.
It's just it's like it's got to be the inevitability of it.
Right.
I wonder if this guy's walking too slow. Yeah, it kind of looks like he's on something and he can't quite remember what part of the city's in. This damn city looks all alike to me. I know I live here somewhere. Now, these guys look all right. This guy...
It's the same walk. That's
Well, you should sort of make it twice as fast for him.
Visually different,
Yeah.
but it's the same walk. Okay.
But apart from that, it looks great.
Okay.
This looks good. It is moving around here. That looks great.
Is Kevin Martell there?
I am.
All right. George, you've met Kevin before, I think. But he's the one who's working on the Widowmaker shot.
The Widowmaker.
So you got brought in.
See? We wanted just to share the love with Kevin here. So Kevin, front and center, please.
All right.
This is called performance.
All right, so this is where Kevin has brought us.
Victory. The shroud of the dark side has fallen. Begun. This Clone War has.
I just wonder about his ears.
Okay. How much they fall, how much they droop at the end.
I would.
This Clone War has.
I would maybe let him stay up a little bit more.
Keep them up.
Yeah. It's a little
too
hangdoggish.
This Clone War begun. This Clone War has.
Yeah, I think it'll work.
Okay.
Great.
All ready?
That's a struggle. It's like getting a performance out of a regular actor. It's just, it takes a lot longer to get there.
A couple more takes.
That's why they'll say digital actors are going to take over. I don't think so. Somehow when they talk about digital actors, they don't realize that you exist.
Right, he's digital, but I'm not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Boy, that Christopher really can fight, can he? Yeah. Looks great. My God. Unbelievable. Okay.
Great.
Look at that. It's Christopher Lee.
All right. 5 weeks and counting. We're doing really, really well. We only have 24 shots left to hand over to the animator, which is excellent. And we have only 12 match moves we're waiting on. So we're in a really good place. We only need 16 finals a week, and we made 45 this week. So we're doing really well. I hope everybody saw the letter that Frank Oz sent myself and all of you this week. He certainly was moved by what we did, and I'm very appreciative that he took the time to write the letter, and I wanted to make sure that you saw it, because I want to share that with you, because it's the group effort of everybody here and all the great T's and compositors who made him look as great as he does. So I see that as a triumph on our behalf, so hopefully the fans will like him as much as Frank and George do. So hats off to you guys.
The hug.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks great. Well, his hands are animated, right?
Yeah. It's just CG hands.
Well, this one, his head is real.
Yeah. But that's the only part of him that we're actually retaining.
Well, but it looks great. That's amazing.
I think it's fairly convincing.
Mm-hmm. 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 Looks great. Yeah, much better. Costume looks great. Creature looks great. Yep. Looks great. I'm gonna make a whole movie in here. Beautiful. Yep. This stuff looks good. It looks good to me. It looked good to me before.
Okay. Okay, that's it for the HD.
There we go.
That's it?
Yep.
Is that everything? Hey, well. Thank you, guys. Do you want to do another one?
Hey, Rob. You
Well,
that,
it's a fantastic job. I mean, there's no getting around it. The theatrical cinema, as we know it, is storytelling. And so the technology is used to tell a story, and that's the whole point. It's really the filmmaker and how well they're able to tell the story that counts in the end. The digital characters are what I need really to tell the Star Wars films, so I could have a story that was more like the one that I could think of in my head. The animators that work on the film are part actors, and it's the director's job to say, that's a good little bit, this is not a good little bit. Tone it down, beef it up, faster, more intense. It's all acting. to me, the sound is a very important part of the picture. It's not just an assembly line thing where you sort of cut the picture and then you just dump the sound on later. It's much more thought out than that.
The sound effects in Star Wars are really what gives these fantastic visuals credibility. And we just take for granted that these machines, these weapons, these aliens,
Enjoy your stay.
these places are all real. There always had to be someone selecting or creating the sounds that would be put into the soundtrack. And there's a real legacy there. The recordings live on. You know, we have over 5,000 sounds in the Star Wars library, and I've been recording things since about 1975. And I've kind of kept a mental record of the things we've recorded, kind of a living database, I guess. Quite often I go back to the original tapes to find new material that we've never sampled before. But the stock is breaking down chemically. But we have found they can be resurrected if we place them in an oven, which warms the tapes up and will restore it so we can actually play it on one of our ancient quarter-inch tape machines. You have to learn to bake them correctly. If they're left in too long, you end up with this interesting piece of art. It used to be sound. I don't know. You can use these recordings as a inspiration sometimes for new things.
I've been working with Ben Bird, our sound designer, on episode 2 for the last couple of years, and he's the godfather of the Star Wars sound universe. Make sure 6 is done in the first part of April. Most people don't realize all the different sound elements that make up a final soundtrack of a film. Pretty rough right now. Like the Foley and the sound effects and the ADR and the production dialogue. And that process will take about a year before we get to the mix.
We're always on the alert for new sounds, and it's a 1942 gas air raid alert sign. It's disgusting. We collected a bunch of mechanical sirens, and that one was a real star. We took it and recorded it down in the parking garage so it really would echo. Now, we used this for the speeder's dive in the speeder chase. I love mechanical sounds, you know, things that are especially old devices, things that aren't, you just can't find them anywhere. One of the sounds we gathered was the Vickers Vimy biplane, which Matt went out and recorded. The sound of that airplane ended up being used for the sound of the gunships that are in the Clone War at the end of the film. Some of the sound of that biplane was I pitched it up and made it higher pitched sound out of it for the Geonosian fighters.
I'm the supervising sound editor. I provide him raw sound effects elements. The main thing when you're out recording is you're just going to look for something unique. Something you hear, you haven't heard it before, and you grab it and you can use it for, you know, anything.
The droid factory sequence required practically every bit of machinery we've ever recorded. Machines that we recorded back as far as Empire Strikes Back, some metal stamping machines that were used. I've found in the past that we've used almost every sound we've recorded by the end of the film. All of those bits and pieces were brought into the sound design room and reworked to create new sounds out of them. I always wanted to blend the literal with the non-literal. In other words, we've made machine sounds, stamping, cutting, banging, the things you might expect with these machines. But this is a foreign, alien world. What's to say it would sound like the Ford Motor Company? It should have some otherworldly quality to it. I'm constructing this mentally as I go, so it's sort of a intensive, it's composition. The idea of using percussion, musical sounds, intermixed with the actual organic sounds of the machinery. So it'll be a little bit of a surprise, have some kind of dramatic freshness to it, and to be just what the audience may expect going in. So we're just going to try it, and we can keep it separate, we can throw it away, we can use it. I just want to have follow through on this idea.
Anakin! How many times I told you? Stay away from power couplings!
There's dialogue replacement because the set often can be very noisy.
You're crazy. Slow down.
If Anakin and Obi-Wan are riding in the speeder, well, there's wind machines blowing on them. The track is just unusable. It's recorded, and then it uses a guide for the actors to come in and repeat their performances to get a clean and intelligible version of the dialogue.
Has they all left to come to the ADR session yet?
You call it Naboo, don't you?
Naboo.
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 Yeah, we'll just do a wild take of struggles and I can cut that in.
It's not like she has dialogue, remember?
That's true.
It's not dialogue, it's just struggling.
It's just struggling.
Okay. Here we go.
Incredible pair of lungs there.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That was good. Let's do one more for safety and
Yep, well, that was good.
What's in a movie we do?
Exactly.
An action picture.
Here we go for take 2. That was good.
That was great.
Yeah, I think we got that covered.
I'm doing I Hit the Ship as well, aren't I?
Yes, it's all part of the same thing. Here we go. Take 1.
I hit the ship, but they used a decoy.
Nailed the sync on that one. That was great sync.
That was great,
that
too.
Was great.
All right.
You happy?
That one's
really
happy.
Good.
I'm very happy for that one.
I want one more for safety, and where I think we got it. What? Sorry, I'm sorry. I need one more.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm just, I'm trying to look out for something.
You used to care.
I still care.
I hit the ship, but they used a decoy.
See, now I got so much more to work with. Okay, that was great. I think I'm fine here. Made my night.
Okay.
You have the digital characters too, which you have to start from scratch.
Take 3, buddy.
The Padawan is right, and only those who have turned to the dark side can sense the possibilities of the future.
On this film, we're going to record something like close to 900 lines of the dialogue.
Meditate on that. I will. Or I must.
Might as well get 3 in a row, right?
Beautiful. I think that's beautiful. I don't. That was take 2 or take 1?
That was take 2.
Yeah. Well, take 2 is the one. So I think we've done it.
Yeah.
I think we can go home now.
Yeah.
May I present Lama Su, Prime Minister of Kamino. And this is Master Jedi
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Koya?
Aye.
Yes?
I'm just about done with spotting Lama Su here. So we're going to need to take this. This is the composite reel you gave me from the picture department. I don't have time to send anything FedEx. If you could put it up on our internet server for Sound Farm over in Sydney, so they'll have the same media we have. And then I'll just make sure that the tie line's working, which is going halfway around the world.
Okay.
How far away are they? 15,000 miles?
Yeah, something like that. So the actor's in Sydney, and George and I are going to be in his theater in the main house.
Long distance looping.
Yeah.
The audio is going via ISDN. It's being encoded on both ends to sound CD quality. And then the video is actually, I've got duplicate video on both sides, and I'm just sending control information to both. So I'm not actually sending video.
Fett demanded only one thing. An unaltered clone for himself. Curious, isn't it? I have to hear it again.
Yeah, I think you had it, you were just one beat too early.
Fett demanded only one thing. An unaltered clone for himself. Curious, isn't it?
Yes, that was really good for the whole thing.
This is the best we've ever had it in terms of the setup and the quality, and the ability to actually do it. And
yeah.
This works amazingly well considering that they're in Australia and we're here.
We tend to work with a smaller crew over a longer period of time compared to other feature films. We actually have a very small sound editing crew. We really did this film with 2 principal sound effects editors.
We have those elements of the metal, and then I'm going to add some dirt in. And then we still have these unrolling effects too, which are when the...
Bruce has been doing all the Genosian crowds and all the crashes and impacts and that sort of thing. Terry's working on the lasers. I'm doing the creatures. Some poor person is going to have to do all the lightsabers.
Right. Who is that person?
Hiya, Terry. How are you? So what do we have today?
Do I hear the arena?
A little bit of it, sure. See how dense it is. No, that's not enough lasers. Wow. See, they'll probably be shooting in those marching shots. I just don't know. But that's great. There'll be more lasers in this than ever before in any Star Wars movie. Density.
I think so.
Very good. So I'm off to my next round. Keep up the good work.
Foley are the sound effects that are really too specific to be found in a library.
I got the dippity-doo and the chamois.
Yeah, I'm going to bring this over.
We'll spot the scenes with the Foley department, and they will go through like an old radio play and perform them like with props. And the Foley editors will then put that in exact sync with the picture, and we'll mix it down as part of the effects track.
There was some really excellent Foley sounds done by Denny Thorpe and Jana Vance for the Cahoons crawling across the floor.
Give it a go. Thank you.
If it's asteroids exploding and, rocket ships flying by, that wouldn't be us. We carry the reels that have a lot of people that are moving and walking and doing stuff.
It just gives an added level of realism to the scene, especially if you're dealing with digital characters that have no sound whatsoever.
Yeah, that's really good.
That's awesome.
Nice job recording too, Pat.
Yeah. That one was not so good.
Maybe let's make them like a little parting, because there you can see that they're still together, and then they're going to come back together, and then we'll get another one.
But we got to make it sound, passionate.
Okay, we're all set.
Let's let her rip.
I can't rip anymore. It's not film.
Yeah, that's good. Ben, you're sweating.
Is that an elbow kiss or a forearm kiss or?
You have to kind of know what you're doing with your.
Okay, I don't want to know.
It was great.
Yeah.
You guys.
All right. Let's go to the next thing. Right now I'm just trying to create some buzzy, insecty kind of sounds out of actual speech. We started out speaking English, and then we slowly changed it a word at a time. And then we started talking through the edge of a piece of paper and making a buzzy sound. I started cutting it up in little pieces and changing the speed, make it so it's too fast. You could never say it this way live. We talked about the idea that since Poggle apparently has 2 mandibles, he has an up and down and a side to side, like a grasshopper, and that if I make this sort of buzzy thing, he would go. He would kind of do that with a funny little animation with part of his mouth
it's
and
good.
talk.
It's important that this be articulate like this
Yeah.
because I think it is reasonably articulate.
I mean, this is the most organic in terms of it's not pitch changed or anything, so there's
Right.
no electronic aspect to it.
He said, "We have no choice but to order a retreat."
Okay, he's more emphatic
So
about
he's
it.
much more emphatic about
Yeah.
it. But it means you need to, you should really see it. As long as you keep them not going on simultaneously.
Right.
Like they butt against each
Mhm.
other, a word can form into that. It sounds great.
Yeah, it's good. It's the last voice in the whole film right now for me. From here on in, it's just a giant mix.
Can't believe we're here finally. My job is to work with the editors to make sure that we get all the elements of the film, like the Foley, the sound effects, the replaced dialogue, the production dialogue, and the sound design, and to make sure that they get all of those elements into sync with the most current picture, and then we bring that to the mix.
The final mix lasts for about a month on a Star Wars film. We go into a dark room every day, and we listen to every sound and every bit of music and every bit of dialogue, and we inch our way through each scene, sometimes only completing a few minutes a day. He can immediately decide whether he wants some major changes of some sort, often tearing things apart and putting them back together a different way until we find something that really satisfies us all and will satisfy George Lucas.
Gary and Ben are in charge. There isn't anybody else who has any power over here.
The first day of the final is always unknown. You never know what's going to happen until you start running it all together. The whole problem is that we haven't heard. Michael's done the dialogue. He hasn't really heard everything that we've done in effects. We haven't heard the music at all. So it all
Throw it all into the pot right off the bat and then sort it out.
sometimes it's a surprise how it all sounds together.
It's kind of like brainwashing in a way. You go in, and you're in the dark, there's loud sounds, there's one source of light on you.
The pop.
Boop! Oh, everybody stood up to attention. You hear things over and over and over again.
Yeah, be careful with their little squeaky sounds, their little chirpy chipmunk sounds. Yeah, there's some great Foley in here, but I guess you don't have Foley, do you? There's a little cutie stuff in there. I think it's too close to what R2 does, and it's also.
I think that is R2.
You're hearing the R2.
It's R2 sleeping off screen. He's snoring.
Well, and get rid of it.
He's paid by the beat, George.
Yeah, he jabbers.
R2 was lost, and I hope he's not too disappointed. But it happens to all of us. We do things that get cut out of the movie. You know? I've done a million things that are cut out of the movie, so.
It would be nice if we could record for that guy that almost runs into Obi-Wan, not the two guys, but the first guy.
Uh-huh.
Maybe you should say, "What the?" It's a traditional line. It's in all movies, and it'd be a good place for it, I think. I love that horn.
Oh, the beep beep. The tucker.
Well, now we got reel 1 done. Now what do we do? Can you put up reel 2, please? Well, good luck. Take 2 aspirin, call me in the morning.
But minor details, they add up to things. They can add up to significant changes if you do enough of them. Coming right up here, it's like that and that.
So what I'm doing now is a welding, which is I think going to take a while.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm not rushing you. I'm just
thinking
checking
ahead.
in.
Good morning, Mr. Burt. Cookies. Who's got cookies? Okay. I guess we're on effects. It needs to be more like chattering. Like crying. And that kind of stuff. Not this kind of.
Borrow that microphone for a second.
Wait till you hear the Droid Factory. There's a real collision of
a cacophony of craziness,
of movie styles coming together.
What do you think about this?
It's a tough one.
I just don't think the percussion is strong enough to withstand what's going on in there. I think we should just replace the percussion part with effects.
In actuality, some of the musical sounds that I had made for the Droid Factory, the drums and things like that, were dropped, but the idea was sort of reborn in the monster fight. Rhythmic sounds that acted as a response to events on the floor of the arena. Horns, as if it was a sports, a wild sports crowd blowing horns and chanting, kinds of things that we immediately associate with the emotions of a giant crowd in a stadium. It was a good trade, actually. Because that's the nature of making these films, that you can always change something, and there's always you can revisit a scene and evaluate it one more time. It's an ongoing process that is really only brought to the end by the calendar.
I don't know whether I should bring it up now, but I guess I should. Yeah. I had a rather, this is just an aside, which will probably cause you a lot of angst. But we're almost done, so I can't do this anymore. It's back in Palpatine's office. The little hologram comes on. Right. And he says, "Good, we'll deal with this later. Send them in." Yeah. That should really be good. Send them in. We'll deal with this later. See what you can do.
I'm going to cook up some, cook up the words.
Good. Send them in. We will discuss this matter later.
I don't think so.
What is this sound? I'm not going to tell you. Actually, it's arcing. It's electrical arcing.
From 25 years ago.
Yeah. Just seems like it's not good enough. There's always a point toward the end during the final mix that I can actually sit down and address the absolute final details, and it adds what I would say the final accent to a moment in the film. During the asteroid chase, which is basically a sound effects only sequence, it was hard to come up with a sound for the seismic charge that would have dramatic contrast to every sound that had just preceded it. It didn't occur to me until we were in the final mix, struggling with this problem, that the best solution might be to have no sound. I reasoned that all energy was pulled into it. No sound could escape. And it was only after it had detonated that somehow the energy was released and then the sound occurred. I created what I call an audio black hole. Certainly at this point, it's just going to be minor details that are changing. It will shape the reels all together as if it was final and then play it for him again, and he'll decide.
Understand that it basically creates a vast amount of havoc at this end if you make changes after the mix.
Yes, it's a little complicated. It's inevitable, George. You've done it every time. Yeah, it's what would it be without a sync change in 7? We wouldn't feel right. Every filmmaker feels that as long as there's time,
a couple of shots,
there's something they can do to improve the movie. New animation or something?
Well, no, we made some changes on the Monaco one, and they hadn't gotten into the deluxe one because they were trying to go so fast.
Uh-huh.
But I said, no, go back and make it right before you make the premium masters. There's a reason why we improve a shot.
Right. I mean, it's just traditional to work until someone just takes it away from you. Films are not released, they escape.
Amazing. I know. It's amazing to see it.
I know, sure. That was the first time through the whole movie.
Yeah, it's like, this is normally what people get to see at the first rough cut screening.
Yeah, I know. I cannot look at it and just sort of think of all the hours. Just that we've lived with this for 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's a matter now of meeting or not meeting expectations. That's that whole factor you can't predict.
Hey,
We're beyond that now. We finished it. It's a movie. We're done it. We did it. We did our part.
I look at these as the swashbuckling adventures of the modern era. To work on a film that has the scope of the Star Wars saga, it's kind of like a dream come true for an actor, because you're doing something that you know is going to last forever.
What more can an actor want in terms of being in a story which is immortalized in the eyes of millions of people? It's very rewarding, very enthralling, and it's magic.
I think people like seeing, themselves in a fantastical world. It's really like a fun trip for the imagination.
It's just the story of people wanting to break free from their surroundings and reach new ground. The struggle from the good side and the dark side, and something that we all deal with that, which I guess is a theme in all of the Star Wars movies.